Brian, you're coming with me to Shanghai.
Woo!
It's your first time. This will be your first time in China, right?
Yes, first time.
First of all, I love China.
Yeah.
I think you're going to love it as much as I do.
I hope so.
It's one of my favorite places in the world to visit now. And I guess I should tell everybody what we're talking about. We're talking about CanJam Shanghai,
Right.
which is happening June 8th and June 9th, 2024 at the Shanghai Marriott Marquis City Center.
Yep.
CanJam Shanghai 2024 is sponsored by Campfire Audio and Max Digital.
Yes.
So thank you, Campfire Audio and Max Digital, for sponsoring CanJam Shanghai. We couldn't do it without you. Now, it's going to be our first CanJam in Shanghai since 2019.
It has been so long.
And so it's been, what, 5 years?
Yeah.
So I'm so looking forward to it, and I think you're going to love the city of Shanghai.
I hope
and
so.
I think you're definitely going to love CanJam Shanghai.
I love seeing all the CanJam attendees at every CanJam we do. So I'm sure that's going to be just as true here.
Yeah, every city has its own sort of vibe, its own
does.
feel.
Yeah.
And that's obviously going to be true for CanJam Shanghai.
Right.
I think I'm almost as excited about going back myself to see how you feel about the city that I've come to love and the event that I've come to love. So we have a lot to cover because this is a preview of some of the things, just a few of the things that'll be at CanJam Shanghai. I guess we should probably get to it. Whenever we do these CanJam preview videos, we have to make a decision about which product category we're going to start with.
Yeah, and that's not always easy.
It is not always an easy decision. For the CanJam Shanghai preview video this time, though, it was an extremely easy decision.
It was.
We're going to start with over-ear headphones, and the reason we're starting with over-ear headphones is because HIFIMAN is going to be launching at CanJam Shanghai a new flagship planar magnetic headphone called the SUSVARA Unveiled.
Right.
I'm extremely excited about the SUSVARA Unveiled. Extremely excited. I got a chance to hear a pre-production version. This is one reason I'm extremely excited. So let's talk about the original SUSVARA first, because I believe that was launched over 7 years ago, if I recall correctly.
I think so.
So it was launched, I think, over 7 years ago, and that it was able to stay as the flagship HIFIMAN planar magnetic for that long, I think is fantastic.
Right.
It was a testament to what a great headphone it is, that it could stay that long and still be held in the highest regard as it is today.
Right.
In fact, I'd say within our community, it's almost universally regarded as one of the most, if not the most resolving non-electrostatic headphones that you can buy. I would actually say it might be more resolving than some electrostatic headphones I've listened to.
Okay.
It's that resolving. That said, it can be hard to drive, and it can be hard to find a good pairing with in terms of amplification and electronics. So it's not always an easy headphone to pair with. But once you find that magic, I mean, here's an easy way. Try it with the HIFIMAN EF1000 DAC.
Oh, yeah.
Great pairing. Great system. Okay. It's an incredible headphone and is still held in high regard. I honestly think if they kept the SUSVARA, actually, it's still going to continue.
Yeah.
The original SUSVARA is going to continue in the line.
Right.
And I think it'll continue to be held in high regard. But the SUSVARA Unveiled is a daring new flagship.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it's daring is because its design is so unusual.
It is.
All right, let's talk about this. So the design, I'm guessing it's called the SUSVARA Unveiled because it is extremely open.
Right.
And when I say extremely, I mean extremely. There's no grill.
Mm-hmm.
There's no covers. Well, there is. We'll get to that. There's no covers. When you listen to it, it is completely open. It's you see the driver from the outside. You see it's just the frame and this meticulously crafted driver, and it's all there to see and hear. But when you're done listening to it, you have to protect it, and you put covers on.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, they're called protective covers.
Yep.
Brian had a suggestion. Brian suggested that they call the covers veils.
Yep.
And then when you take them off, unveiled. Anyways, I passed your suggestion on to Fong.
Oh, did you?
I did. So we'll see if he uses it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea. Yeah. So you put the covers on when you're not listening to it to protect it. But when you're listening to it, you take them off, and it is so open. I mean, you literally can't. I don't think you could reasonably get more open than that with any planar magnetic headphone.
I don't think so.
All right. So I've heard it. I mentioned I heard it. We had a sneak preview. They didn't show it at Munich High End.
Right.
But they had a secret listening area that a few people were able to listen to. I listened to it. Ethan listened to it. There were a few other guys that got to listen to it as well. And it's incredible. Every person I saw that heard it had the same response I did, which was essentially, when is it coming out? when can I get one?
Yep.
Because I think anybody that hears this is going to want to buy it. I think Susvara lovers are going to love this. And it doesn't make the original Susvara any less impressive that, for what it is. But from what I heard, first impressions, the Susvara Unveiled is a better headphone.
Wow.
Easier to drive. I think it has silver traces. And so it's easier to drive.
Mm-hmm.
I tried driving it with the EF1000 DAC. Fantastic. I tried driving it with my digital audio player. I think I was using an SP3000T from Astle & Kern. It drove it surprisingly well. It's not something that I really thought to do with the original Susvara.
No.
And as far as the sound signature goes, and then Ethan agrees with me, I think the other people in the room also agreed with me, it is more refined than the Susvara. And it's not like I ever thought the Susvara needed refining.
Yeah.
So this is exciting. This is, I think, the biggest launch that I'm aware of that's going to be happening at CanJam Shanghai.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're starting with HIFIMAN. That's why we're starting with over-ear headphones.
Yep.
You haven't heard it yet.
No.
But, yeah, that is something I think will probably be one of the first ones you want to listen to.
It will be.
There may be a line. Because I think once people find out, we're telling you now that it's going to be there, there might be a line. So the Susvara Unveiled from HIFIMAN will be there. Don't miss it.
And it's not just that Susvara Unveiled that HIFIMAN is unveiling at CanJam Shanghai. They're also showing off something that I first caught in an image, and it drew my eye immediately because it's a mini Shangri-La, and I thought, yes, hello, a small electrostatic system from HIFIMAN, or at least smaller. I am very curious to hear this thing. Now, you, I think, also got a chance to hear that in Munich, did you not?
Yeah, so you saw an image online. I had no idea. I had not seen anything about it prior to arriving at Munich High-End, so I didn't know anything about this mini Shangri-La system, and that's what it's called, the HIFIMAN mini Shangri-La.
Yep.
And and I know that when you say mini, it almost makes it sound like it's this really tiny
it's
system.
Not ultra compact.
No, it's not ultra compact, but it's certainly smaller than the giant Shangri-La.
Yes.
And it's also smaller than the still large Shangri-La Junior.
So it is nice. Okay.
It is nice and compact. But it's a full-size system, full-size headphone.
Mm-hmm.
And I that was the first I'd seen it, and it is, I don't know what the final pricing is going to be, but I have some idea what it's going to be. I kind of know the range.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say this is an affordable Shangri-La-derived electrostatic system from HIFIMAN, and it's going to be affordable.
Yeah.
And the most compact of them. I am so looking forward to having this at one of my desks. I already know where I want to put it.
Yep.
You're probably thinking, yeah, my desk too.
My desk.
But anyways, so I'm very excited about this one. Okay, so I had a chance to hear it. Spent more time with the Susvara Unveiled.
Understandably.
But had a chance to listen to a couple songs with the Shangri-La, the mini Shangri-La. And I'll say it's deserving of the name.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not, of course, the big cost no object Shangri-La.
Sure.
And but it derives from that and the Shangri-La Junior. I'll just say it's. I think the name is deserved for sure. They didn't go wrong naming it the mini Shangri-La. I'm very excited about that. So it's another exciting launch from HIFIMAN at CanJam Shanghai. Now, of course, HIFIMAN will have their entire lineup at CanJam Shanghai.
Right.
So if I had to pick something from the existing lineup
Mm-hmm.
to listen to, definitely listen to their entire product line. But if I had to pick one of the existing models, I would say the Aria Organic.
Right.
The HIFIMAN Aria Organic is, in my opinion, maybe the best value HIFIMAN headphone ever released.
Mm-hmm.
It is everything you'd want from a HIFIMAN planar magnetic headphone in terms of detail, resolution, but it adds a little bit of that warmth, a little richness, and as the name suggests, just an organic touch.
Right.
Of all the planar magnetic headphones I think they've made that aren't called Susvara, I'd say the Aria Organic's my favorite. So listen to the entire lineup. Don't miss the Aria Organic and, of course, the new product launches we talked about. When I think of FiiO, I still think of electronics first.
Right.
Portable players, desktop electronics.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're going to have to start thinking about FiiO and over-ear headphones too.
We will.
And one of the big reasons I say that is this model here. This is the
Yeah.
FiiO FT3. This is a can't-miss headphone at CanJam Shanghai. Go to FiiO's exhibit and listen to it. This is an open-back dynamic headphone.
Mm-hmm.
The dynamic drivers are quite large. They're
They
60-millimeter dynamic drivers made of DLC. That's diamond-like carbon. They're angled drivers. And it's a high-impedance design, 350 ohms.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of audiophiles will actually prefer, depending on what you're driving it with. It has a brilliant plated gasket. I guess I should mention the build quality is fantastic.
It is exquisite.
And I think this headphone, of course, sound quality is the most important thing, but I think since I mentioned build quality, I should say this. This headphone has a chance of being a classic.
Yeah.
The way a Sennheiser HD600 is a classic.
Right.
There are other classic models because at its price, it's built beautifully. I mean, honestly, this thing is built like a tank.
Yeah, it is.
I could see this lasting for years.
Oh, yeah.
But of course, sound quality is the most important thing. And this has a very audiophile-friendly sound quality.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's in what I call that range of neutrality. And maybe even enough so, not just to satisfy audiophiles, but potentially even for possible use in a professional setting as an open back monitor.
Yeah, maybe.
It also comes fantastically accessorized.
Oh, it really does.
So it comes with a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It comes with a hard side case, which I think is a great case, actually. And then it comes with a velour bag.
Yeah.
And then it has 2 sets of ear pads. I prefer one set over the other. I will not tell you which ones. I don't want to bias your listening. But listen to both sets of ear pads. Tell me which one you prefer. Then I'll tell you which one I prefer if you see me at the show. And it comes with 2 different cables, 3.5 millimeter single-ended or unbalanced cable, and a 4.4 millimeter balanced cable with a 4.4 millimeter to 4-pin XLR adapter.
And I love that adapter.
I love that adapter. If you can't find it, it's because I took it.
Yeah.
It's with me most of the time. And for the price, again, this is just a can't miss headphone. I think this is going to be a classic headphone if FiiO keeps it around long enough. So again, do not miss the FiiO FT3.
Now, while we have spent some time with the FT3, we haven't spent much time with the FT5.
No.
It's basically its planar magnetic sibling, if you want to call it that. So the FT5 is a 90 millimeter planar magnetic headphone, 36 ohm impedance, and it's also an open back headphone, just like the FT3 is. It has a magnesium alloy housing. It also comes with multiple ear pads. They have a suede and protein leather. 4 types of connectors are included in there. You've got the 3.5 and 4.4 millimeter swappable connectors, and then the 4.4 millimeter XLR adapter and a 3.5 millimeter to 6.35 millimeter adapter as well. So it's also very well equipped. It's also very affordable when you consider that it's a planar magnetic design. It's coming from FiiO. It has that FiiO build quality. It's one of those ones that I can't say myself that I think it'd be a classic just yet because I need to spend more time with it.
I need to spend time with it too. We don't have one here yet.
Exactly, but it has potential.
Yeah,
definitely
I think
based
so
on
too.
spec. So the FT5 is absolutely one to check out.
I also want to make sure we don't forget to mention the FiiO JT1, which is brand new.
Right.
We don't have that here either, but it will be at CanJam Shanghai, and that should be a can't miss. Because if the FiiO FT3 and the FiiO FT5 are affordable, the FiiO JT1 is ultra affordable. It's a closed-back dynamic headphone, 50 millimeter dynamic drivers made of PEK plus PU plus aluminum foil composite polymer, the diaphragms. That's polyether ketone plus polyurethane plus aluminum foil composite polymer. And it's a closed cavity design, again, closed back design.
Right.
It uses a copper-clad aluminum wire paper tube voice coil with N52 high-performance magnets. That's a type of neodymium magnet.
Yep.
Dual TRS detachable cable, inline microphone cable, and the price, again, ultra affordable.
Yep.
Now, this one I'm looking forward to hearing because they've been pushing this, I think, on their social quite heavily.
A little bit, yeah.
So I am looking forward to hearing that one, especially for the price, so don't miss the FiiO JT1.
Now, we just did a video about Focal's 2 newest headphones, the Focal Osiris and the Focal Adonis, so definitely go check that out if you haven't seen it yet, because we go in depth. We do a full review and comparison with other Focal headphones like the Batiste, which is their wireless headphone around my neck right now.
Yeah, we compared even to some of their flagship headphones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start with the Osiris. The Osiris is a 40 millimeter aluminum magnesium M-shaped dome driver headphone. And that may sound familiar to some of you because they've used that driver arrangement in other headphones from Focal.
They've used that same dome, I think, in the original Focal Clear.
Yeah.
They used it in the Illier, I believe, and also the Celestie.
Right.
Then, of course, now that uses it, the Adonis uses it, and so does the Batiste. The dome.
The dome, yeah. So it has a 26 ohm impedance, and it comes with a 1.25 meter cable with a built-in inline microphone.
And it's a closed back.
It is a closed back headphone. There's a compact carrying case, so if you want to throw it in your bag and take it with you, you can easily do that. Very compact. And it is made in France, so it's one of those headphones that you can actually get from the Focal factory. As far as the color goes, I wanted to read from their material. They say, the origin of the name and the color of the Osiris headphones comes from the semi-precious stone azurite, known to bring positive energy, confidence, and dynamism.
I did not mention that in our review video.
You did not.
No.
But one thing you did mention in our review video is the excellent sound that this creates.
Yes.
It is a wonderful sounding headphone. And when you think about the price, it is, I think, the most affordable made in France Focal headphone.
Yeah.
So you can get Focal sound from their France facilities.
Which is where they make their best headphones.
It is.
And so for their made in France headphones, that is extremely affordable.
It is.
And as far as the sound quality goes, I would say that it is in the range of neutrality. So again, I've said this a zillion times. Neutrality in headphones is really more of a range than a single target. And the Osiris is definitely in that range of neutrality. I would say its bass is on the higher end of that range of neutrality, but it's still there. So wonderful closed back headphone. Again, to get a Focal closed back at that price that's easy to take with you, I think is very exciting.
Now, I like the Osiris, but I definitely prefer the Audinese. The Audinese is the open back sibling to the Osiris. It is also, like you said earlier, a 40 millimeter M-shaped aluminum magnesium dome inside. It's also 26 ohm impedance. This one comes with a 1.8 meter cable terminated in 3.5 millimeter. It also comes with a 6.35 millimeter adapter, and it also comes with that compact carrying case. It's also made in France. And as far as the name and color, Focal says the origin of the name Audinese and the color comes from the Aedean, the eon of Earth's formation 4.6 billion years ago. Audinese embodies a return to roots, poised between power and minerality. Now, I can't say, if that description speaks to me, but I could definitely say this sound speaks to me.
Oh, yeah.
This is a wonderful sounding headphone. Compared to the Osiris, it's got more detail, it's got more emphasis and resolution and clarity, and those are all things that I love.
Yeah, so again, the Audinese, I think because it's open back, like you mentioned, definitely has an edge over the Osiris in terms of resolution. And like the Osiris, it has, again, a signature that is within neutrality. It has, I would say, more neutral in the bass for sure than the Osiris.
Right.
So closer to the middle of the range of neutrality. Now, while you're more excited about the Audinese, and I think it sounds better than the Osiris too, because again, it has advantages being an open back headphone.
Right.
I am probably more excited about the Osiris just because, again, it being closed back, I can use it in more places, in more settings. And so for that reason, to have a compact closed back from Focal that folds flat, easy to take with me, fits in my backpack, I'm probably more excited a bit about the Osiris than the Audinese, but both are just fantastic values. Now it's around your neck right now, but I don't want to miss the Focal Batiste.
Right.
Definitely stop by when you go by Focal's exhibit, listen to the Batiste. If you're shopping for a wireless Bluetooth ANC headphone, that right now, the Batiste is still my choice for audiophile ANC wireless headphone.
Right.
So don't miss the Batiste either. So moving from the more affordable Focal headphones,
Right.
I want to go straight to their most expensive headphone.
All right.
And what I consider, well, it is to me obviously their best headphone, and the Utopia, which is what this is. This is the 2022 version of the Utopia. The Focal Utopia, and I've said this many times before, is in my opinion one of the most resolving headphones of any type at any price in the world.
Right.
And it's a dynamic headphone. It uses their solid beryllium dome driver. They use the solid beryllium dome. They still use it in the Stellia closed-back flagship. It's still, I believe, the exact same dome that was used in the original Utopia, but they've redone the driver, the entire assembly, or the motor, new voice coil and everything else. And to me, it fixes the minor critiques I had of the original Utopia. The original Utopia, to me, was a little too bright, and as a result of that, maybe made it sound leaner. With the new Utopia, the 2022 version, this one here, they have refined the treble, reduced the treble energy to some degree, which really gives it, to me, a comparatively richer sound.
Right.
This is what I wanted from the Utopia. Focal gave it to me with the new Utopia. So this is their most expensive headphone. I still think it's, again, one of the best headphones in the world at any price. So at Focal's exhibit, make sure to catch the ones that you talked about,
Right.
the Audinese, the Osiris, and the Batiste. Of course, the Utopia is a can't miss. And I want to just quickly mention also the Focal Stellia, which is their closed-back flagship, still one of my favorite closed-back headphones of all time.
Now, this headphone is going to look familiar probably to many. This is the Odyssey Maxwell, and it will be at CanJam. Odyssey is making the trip over to China to show it off.
Yeah, it's immensely popular.
It is, because it is a phenomenal music headphone.
Yeah.
Now, you'll see it advertised as a gaming headset, and it is, but it is exceptional for music listening because it has Audacy's 90mm planar magnetic drivers inside. It also has some really cool EQ stuff, but I'll talk about that in a second. It has dual onboard amplifiers, so one for each earpiece. It has an aluminum and steel chassis and Bluetooth 5.3. So Bluetooth 5.3 means you have support for things like LE Audio, LC3 Plus, and LDAC, which are some newer codecs. And it has 80 hours of battery life. So if you're using it on the go as a music listening headphone, you don't have to worry about juicing up regularly.
Yeah, the battery life is a big deal.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, if you're also getting this for gaming, if you're getting it on PC or Xbox, the Xbox version does have a built-in Dolby Atmos license, which is very nice to have.
It is.
And if you're a professional that uses this for work, they recently added head tracking functionality to those that are working with Dolby Atmos Renderer. Now, it's only for professionals, but if you're in a studio working with Dolby Atmos Renderer, that is going to be a really nice tool to have at your disposal. Now, I mentioned the EQ settings. It has some really cool default EQ settings. I think one of them is pretty close to Harman, but you can also customize and add your own too. Right. So very fantastic headphone for music listening.
Yeah, because there's EQs that are great for music listening or EQ settings, but of course some that are specifically for gaming.
Yep.
And you mentioned, of course, you started off, which I think is appropriate, saying how great it is with music.
Yeah.
It is a gaming headset, really, if you think about it, first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
But for this community, for audiophiles, you cannot... I almost feel like that's an underrated feature of it, is how good it is with music.
It is.
Since it's a gaming headset.
Yeah.
But it's so good with music. And so for a wireless headphone, for audiophile use around the house or office, it's just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. But you did mention underrated features.
Yeah.
There's another underrated feature in here that I think a lot of people may be sleeping on.
What's that?
It's the Audacy filter technology.
Oh, yeah.
So that's outgoing noise reduction. So it's not active noise cancellation. This is not an ANC headphone.
Yes, so it's not canceling noise that's coming into your ears.
Right. It's noise going out into the
going
microphone.
out through the microphone.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're, let's say, eating, or you have, you're breathing, or you have appliances going on in the background, or someone's talking, it does cancel some of that out. Actually, a lot of that.
A lot of that out.
A lot of it out.
Yeah.
So they have a really cool demo. I think it's on YouTube, where they have a blender running in the background.
Yes.
And there's a young lady talking. It is a very cool demo. Definitely check it out. But you'll also be able to check it out for yourself at CanJam Shanghai, because while Audacy is coming on their own, Max Digital will also have the Audacy Maxwell, and they've teamed up with Bluehole. So if Bluehole doesn't sound familiar to you, I didn't recognize the name at first, but you might know the name Crafton. So Crafton and Bluehole, they're behind PUBG, Players Unknown Battleground. They're going to have a special gaming experience with the Maxwell setup at CanJam Shanghai, and it's going to have 5 PCs networked together, so you will be able to audition it with the PUBG interface and the gameplay, but they're also going to have a Moza racing simulator. So It's a really cool racing simulator, fully decked out, and I really want to try this because if you think about racing, that's a game where sound cues, positional audio is going to be really important, because you can, get a feel for what's going on the track without necessarily using your mirrors. I really want to get some hands-on time with that.
As a huge motorsports fan, I am going to probably check that out first.
Yeah.
And I'm not familiar with the Moza Racing Simulator, so I want to see what that's about.
They're pretty cool.
But you mentioned how great it is with music.
Yeah.
The Maxwell. And I think that's so important to reiterate, because it is a gaming headset first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure people understand that one of its most underrated features, in my opinion, is still just listening to music. It's phenomenal for audiophile music listening as a wireless headphone around the office or home.
Now, I do also want to give a real quick shout out to, I think, another headphone that is underrated. Yeah. This is the Audacy MM100. So if you know the MM series, is the Manny Marroquin line, is their line of studio professional headphones, but it is still very much a music headphone. So don't let the professional series fool you.
Right.
MM100 is one you have to check out. I use this around the studio for music listening, for work. It is an exceptional workhorse. It is an exceptional music listening headphone. Absolutely make sure that the MM100 is on your list.
And while you're at Audacy's exhibit, I just want to make sure that you don't miss the entire lineup.
Right.
Because they're going to have all their LCD models, some of which are classics, but also the LCD5, their flagship planar magnetic headphone, extremely resolving. And then a headphone that I think shares a lot of similar traits sonically, but has electrostatic detail. And that's because it's an electrostatic headphone. It's the Audacy Carbon. Mm-hmm. We've done videos of both of those headphones, I think.
We did.
So don't miss those. Check out our channel and watch those videos. but also don't miss the LCD5 and carbon at Odyssey's exhibit. Sennheiser will be at CanJam Shanghai. I'm very excited about this. I think most of you will have heard most of their over-ear headphones, if not all of them, except for this one.
Yeah.
So this is brand new. This is the Sennheiser HD 620S. As the name suggests, it's intended to be a closed-back HD 600 family headphone.
Right.
Now, I know it looks like some past headphones they've released in the HD 500 line.
Yeah.
And the reason they went with this chassis is the original HD 600 type chassis was made to be an open back chassis and only an open back chassis.
Yes.
This, the HD 500 type chassis, was made to accommodate both open back and closed back designs. Now, even though I'm saying that, it's important to point out that if you look at a previous closed back like the HD 569, that is nothing like the HD 620S.
Right.
In fact, if you could open up an HD 569 and open up the HD 600, the 620S, you'd see that they're very, very different inside.
Yeah.
So the HD 569 has a much smaller volume behind the driver. It's almost like a sub-enclosure that they have for the 569's driver. But for the 620S, they've opened up the back almost completely. And I believe it's an entirely new driver assembly. So it sounds a lot more open than previous closed-backs they've done in that range.
Yep.
Much more open. And I can see why they're calling it a 600 headphone that's closed. So it is a closed-back design again, 42mm angled transducers with 38mm diaphragm, steel-reinforced ear cup covers, 150-ohm design, so it's a 150-ohm aluminum voice coil, steel-reinforced headband sliders, artificial leather ear pads with internal venting, and it only weighs 326 grams.
Yep.
So it's extremely lightweight, very comfortable. This is a headphone that you'll definitely want to check out. So if you're a fan of the HD 600 line of headphones and you've wanted a closed back headphone, it doesn't sound exactly like a 600 or 650 closed, of course.
Right.
But they've tuned it very carefully. And again, they've opened up the enclosure inside quite a lot to give it a lot of the characteristics of open back sound in a closed back design. So, and it isolates quite well.
Yeah.
So don't miss the HD 620S at Sennheiser's exhibit. Of course, listen to their entire lineup, but I think this is the one most people will want to hear.
Moondrop is showing off a new flagship full-size headphone, and it's called the Cosmo. Now, the Cosmo was first unveiled back in April, but you'll be able to hear it at CanJam Shanghai. It features a 100mm ultra-thin planar magnetic diaphragm with pure silver etched circuitry, N52 neodymium magnetic array, and has a 15-ohm impedance. Now, there are dual frequency control waveguides, one in the front and one in the rear, which I don't think I've seen done before. It has a cable that's terminated in 4.4mm, and this even comes with a 4.4mm to 6.35mm adapter in the box. I think that's a great addition, and I wish more cables terminated in 4.4 came with this automatically. All in, the Cosmo caught my curiosity, and you'll be able to check it out with me at Moondrop's exhibit. Now you're holding the Dan Clark Audio E3. It's a relatively new headphone, and we've done a full HeadFi TV video about the E3. You actually went out to California to sit down with Dan Clark and talk about the E3,
right?
Gave a full review, measurements. It's definitely worth checking out. And the E3 is kind of, if you think about the price point, it's kind of positioning itself to shake up the Dan Clark Audio headphone line.
And they are selling so many of these.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the price, this is a very interesting headphone, I think, in the Dan Clark lineup. So it's a closed back headphone.
Yes.
Like all closed back Dan Clark headphones, it has a lot of characteristics of open back headphones. It sounds like an open back headphone, really, when you listen to it. But the reason I think this is doing so well is because I think it comes rather close in terms of overall performance level to something like their flagships.
Yeah.
Like the Stealth, which is their closed back flagship, like the Expanse, which is their open back flagship. And it has a different enough signature from the Stealth that I think some people are going to prefer the E3 to the Stealth. So you're one of them.
I'm one of them.
So I prefer the Stealth to the E3.
Right.
So the E3, I would say, has a more, I would say they're both neutral in the range of neutrality. This one has a little more treble presence.
Yeah.
And the bass, to me, because of that, is a little less full sounding.
Right.
So this one kind of hits with a more perceived flat bass with really nice treble presence and detail.
Yep.
And again, it sounds like an open back headphone, but it's closed back. The Stealth, which is the closed back flagship, has maybe a smoother upper end, a little richer tonality.
Right.
Which is definitely more my preference.
It is,
But
yeah.
I still love the E3.
Yeah.
But you like the E3 more than the Stealth.
I do.
So the E3 to me at the price, though, because it's so much more affordable than their flagships.
Yeah.
It just has to be one of the top recommendations I have for over-ear headphones to audition at CanJam Shanghai. So if you haven't already heard the E3, or you haven't ordered one already, because so many people have ordered the E3, then you definitely want to audition it at the Dan Clark Audio exhibit. Now, while the E3 is the more affordable model, I definitely want to still place a lot of emphasis that you need to audition, if you haven't already, the flagship models.
Yeah.
So I mentioned the closed-back planar magnetic flagship, the Stealth,
Yep.
the open-back planar magnetic flagship, the Expanse.
Right.
But you're also holding another one that I want to make sure people don't miss,
Yes.
which is their open-back electrostatic flagship, the Corina.
Yeah, this is a fantastic headphone. It's
Fantastic.
an 88 millimeter electrostatic driver inside of this. And I want to say the design, the industrial design on this is exquisite. It's one of my favorite headphones I've seen.
It's a beautiful headphone.
Dan does phenomenal designs on his on his electrostatic headphones. So if you look at the Voce, the design is excellent. The Corina is just a tier above, in my
And
opinion.
it also sounds better than
It
the
does.
Voce. The Voce is a nice headphone, but the Corina is definitely leveled up.
I agree. And part of that leveling up, I think, is a technology that Dan has in here, which is also in the E3, that AMTS, that acoustic metamaterial tuning system that he created. So that is inside of here, and it allows them to sculpt the signature of each driver exactly the way they want it to deliver the sound that they were trying to do. And this is going to be a headphone that people need to check out because it's an electrostatic headphone that has bass.
It does.
It actually has proper bass.
Yes.
And he did a wonderful job tuning it. So if you're looking for an electrostatic, which I'm an electrostatic fan, this should absolutely be on your list.
Yeah, so if you're currently shopping, or if you're curious about electrostatic headphones because you haven't heard them,
Sure.
make sure to listen to this.
Yep.
The Corina. If you're shopping for electrostatic headphones, whether you're shopping for Stax, Odyssey with the Carbon,
Right.
HIFIMAN's electrostatic offerings, you cannot miss the Corina. Add that to your list as well. You definitely want to audition that because it is just a fantastic flagship class electrostatic headphone from Dan Clark Audio. Meza Audio will be at CanJam Shanghai. I'm very
Right.
excited about that. We're holding two of their latest headphones. You have the Lyric 2. I have the Empyrean 2.
Right.
These are very interesting headphones. Meza Audio made some very interesting choices, in my opinion,
They have.
with these two headphones. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say the Empyrean 2 replaces the Empyrean. The Lyric 2 replaces the Lyric.
Exactly.
Both are planar magnetic headphones.
Yep.
This is higher end than the Lyric being more affordable.
Right.
I want to start with the Empyrean 2. The Empyrean, the original Empyrean, was Meza Audio's first flagship class headphone.
Yeah.
Beloved for its rich tonality, that lush signature. I love it for that.
Yeah.
But with the Empyrean 2,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I would have expected them to like build on that original Empyrean sound and maybe
Exactly.
come up with some sort of slightly, a slightly differently tuned version of it, some optimizations.
Right.
Instead, they went in a completely different direction.
They did.
They went neutral. So they took, the lush sounding Empyrean and went to a more neutral Empyrean 2.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that I could see this being used in a professional setting. That's how neutral I think this is.
I can see that. Yeah.
And I asked Meza about it, and they told me that, they could see it being used in a professional setting too. I kind of got the impression they almost intended that.
Right.
Because there are some headphones like the Odyssey MM500,
Right.
the LCDX that are used in professional settings by professionals who are willing to spend that kind of money
Yeah.
on a really high-end, sort of neutral-ish headphone that they can use in the studio.
Exactly.
Now Meza's giving them another choice
Yep.
with the Empyrean 2. But it's just such an interesting departure from the original Empyrean,
Right.
and it's replacing it.
Yes.
Now, I would have thought maybe this would be released as another model, given the tuning, maybe like an Empyrean Pro,
Right.
and keeping the original Empyrean, but they decided to replace it.
Yep.
And frankly, I think a lot of people are going to really appreciate it because I think some people wanted a more neutral tuning, a more conventional tuning
Yeah.
from Meza Audio. I'm torn. I'm not sure which I prefer because I do appreciate lushness and richness so much,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hard not to appreciate the neutrality of this one,
Right.
of the Empyrean 2. But anyway, so let's talk about what it is. For those of you not familiar, again, it's a planar magnetic headphone. It's a flagship class planar magnetic from Meza Audio. It's one of the most beautiful headphones ever crafted, in my opinion. We've said it before in other videos. I think, and I think you agree, that of all the headphones we've used, held, photographed. Meza Audio's flagship headphones are perhaps the best made, best crafted headphones in the world in terms of build quality and quality of finish.
Oh, no doubt.
They're incredible.
Right.
And this is no different, of course.
Yeah.
All their headphones today are pretty much gorgeous from any angle. So they have new ear pads with this.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they made some driver changes, I believe, it's a completely different tuning.
Yep.
But there's new pads. They're called Duo Flat Ear Pads, a precise blend of premium leather and Alcantara. Impedance is 32 ohms.
Mm-hmm.
It still uses the switchback coil and spiral coil design, but I think there may be changes in the driver.
Right.
A redesigned grill. It's just a beautiful headphone. Frankly,
It really is.
the original Empyrean was one of the most beautiful headphones to look at. I think the Empyrean 2 is even more gorgeous.
It is.
So again, interesting choices from Meza.
Yeah.
And those interesting choices also continue with the model you're holding, which is the Lyric 2.
Exactly.
And the reason I find that interesting is they went in the opposite direction.
They did.
In the sense that they went more lush
Yeah.
with the Lyric's replacement. So I'll let you talk about the Lyric 2.
Yeah, because the original Lyric had closer to kind of a more neutral-y sound.
Certainly
I don't
compared to
want
that
call it neutral.
one. Yeah.
Definitely compared to this, but more neutral-y compared to the Lyric 2 now.
Right.
And with the original Lyric, they got a lot of community feedback. They actually said that the sound of the Lyric 2 has been refined with the help of the community's feedback, and it now falls in between a balanced and warm profile. So it's they say it's kind of splitting the difference.
I would say
it's a little closer to warm to me.
I would say so too,
Yeah.
but it's still a fair description.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree. And the feedback that they got, I think, if you think about what the original Lyric was, this is going to tick a lot more boxes for a lot more people.
Right.
Overall, I feel. And one of the reasons behind that change, actually, I should mention this, these pads come off, which they didn't come off on the original Lyric this easily. These are magnetic.
Right.
Much like the Empyrean and the Elite headphones, but the original Lyric did not have this.
Yes.
But right here, I don't know if you can see it, it's a QWRM. They call it a quarter wavelength resonator module, or mask, sorry. Yeah. And they're using that to tune the sound from the system and get that more richness that they were trying to go for. So I think that is one of the things when you combine it with the detachable pads, they've really pushed this towards a signature a lot of people are going to want.
Yeah, I'm looking at the notes. It says the QWRM, the quarter wavelength resonator mask, effectively attenuates high frequency peaks above 7 kilohertz for a less fatiguing listening experience.
Right.
And I would say that is definitely something that they've done with that, is they've come up with a signature that is very non-fatiguing.
Right.
Like you said, they describe it as what between
they say it's between
balanced and warm.
Balanced and warm, yeah.
And I would say that's a fair description. I will also say that what's the wood?
Oh, it's a Macassar ebony, I believe.
So I will say, just like so with the Empyrean 2,
yeah,
I think it was an improvement in aesthetics versus the Empyrean 1, even though I still love the way the Empyrean 1 looks. This one I think is a significant, like a much bigger visual upgrade versus the Lyric.
Oh yeah,
1.
Lyric had that matte black faceplate. This has the beautiful wood, stunning, wood graining inside of it.
Yeah, I think Meza Audio definitely, again, and that certainly is one of them now, makes some of the most beautiful headphones in the world.
They really do.
And so they'll have both of these at CanJam Shanghai.
Yep.
If you're familiar with the Lyric, listen to the Lyric 2. You might be surprised. If you're familiar with the Empyrean, listen to the Empyrean 2. I think you'll also be surprised. One went more lush with the Lyric 2. One went more neutral with the Empyrean 2. And I think those are just such interesting, daring choices
They are.
from Meza Audio, and I love that they did that. Now at CanJam Shanghai, there'll be a lot of audio electronics there.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot. And both desktop and portable.
Yeah.
And on the table here in front of us, we have just a very small sample of what you'll be able to hear there. This isn't even close. There's going to be so much more than this.
Yeah.
But we happen to have here some of the things that will be exhibited there. And so I wanted to go over that and some of the other new products as well.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start with Chord Electronics.
Sure.
So Chord Electronics, the one on the top there is their flagship DAC. It's the Chord Electronics Dave.
Yeah.
It's been around for years. It's still their flagship DAC.
Yeah.
And here, it's one of our reference DACs. It is still, this many years later, one of the best DACs I've ever heard or used. And if you're familiar with Chord Electronics' line of DACs, you know that the higher up you go in the DAC lineup at Chord, the more taps there are in the digital filter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to try to explain taps to you. Rob Watts from Cord Electronics is really good at explaining it.
He is.
We're not going to get into that here. But the more taps there are in the filter, generally the higher up you are in the line.
Right.
The Cord Dave has 164,000 taps. The Cord Electronics Hugo TT2, which is the one underneath it, is actually the one, even though I prefer the Dave as a DAC,
Mm-hmm.
I use the Hugo TT2 more than the Dave. Why? Because the amp section on the Hugo TT2 is so much more versatile.
It is.
Because there are different gain settings. So you put in low gain, and it is quiet enough to drive even the most sensitive in-ears.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I wouldn't necessarily do with the Dave, with the most sensitive in-ears. And then on the other side of that, if you put it in high gain mode, it has enough drive and more drive than the Dave's amp section,
Right.
to drive even the most difficult to drive headphones. This is why I've described it in other videos as perhaps the Hugo TT2, as perhaps the ideal reviewer's DAC amp,
Mm-hmm.
because you can drive anything with it. So no matter what kind of headphone or earphone you're reviewing, the Hugo TT2 will drive it beautifully.
Of course.
Now, the Hugo TT2
Mm-hmm.
has 98,304 taps in its filter,
Right.
compared again to the Dave's 164,000 taps. And now I want to get to the other thing that's on the table,
Yep.
which is the Cord Electronics M scaler.
Yeah.
Okay, if you add the M scaler to either of these DACs,
Or even the Hugo 2.
yes, or even so I have a Hugo 2 here. This is the portable Hugo 2.
Yeah.
If you add the M scaler to even the Hugo 2, the Hugo TT2, or the
The Dave.
Dave, you get over 1 million taps.
Yep.
And I still remember the first time I heard it. The effect to me is mostly in terms of imaging, resolution as well.
Mm-hmm.
It improves resolving ability. But the big effect for me is in imaging. A more holographic soundstage, more holographic imaging, more precise imaging. And that to me is a really big deal. And it's what's nice is at the show you'll be able to switch the M scaler in and out. I don't think they'll have it. We haven't used it with the Hugo
No, we haven't.
2 yet.
Right.
But with the Hugo TT2 and M scaler, I'm guessing, and Dave, they'll probably have that there so that you can switch it out and hear it for yourself.
Yeah.
So these are still reference DAC amps and DACs for us here at HeadFi HQ. I strongly recommend at CanJam Shanghai, if you're looking for a new DAC or a new DAC amp, and especially if you're looking for really high-end ones,
Yep.
don't miss Cord Electronics at the Max Digital exhibit.
Now, Cord Electronics gear won't be the only thing worth checking out at Max Digital. They'll also have the Manly Labs Manly Absolute headphone amplifier. The Absolute features a triode vacuum tube output stage that's switchable between single-ended and push-pull topologies. It has 2 sets of RCA inputs, 1 pair of RCA outputs, and 4-pin XLR and 6.35mm headphone outputs. There are 3 gain settings, and the volume is controlled by a precision-stepped relay attenuator. It even has switchable output impedance. Now, we had this briefly here at HeadFi HQ, and it was such a fun amplifier, it is absolutely one worth checking out.
Max Digital will also have the Warwick Acoustics Aperio Gold headphone system. This is a cost, no object, flagship electrostatic headphone system, a complete system that's an integrated energizer, DAC, and preamp, and of course the electrostatic headphone. Only 100 of these systems were made, so this might be your only chance to hear one. I've had a chance to hear the Aperio on several occasions. It's one of the best headphone systems I've ever heard. I'd love to have a chance to compare it to something like the Sennheiser HE1. Maybe one day I'll get to do that. But I definitely won't miss the Aperio Gold at CanJam Shanghai. They'll also have the Warwick Acoustics Bravura. This is a more affordable electrostatic headphone system, more affordable than the Aperio. This is another wonderful electrostatic system. Don't miss that at Max Digital's exhibit either.
And Max Digital will be feeding some of their desktop setups with the Orender A1000 network player. The A1000 is sporting a dual mono AKM 4490 REQ DAC, a quad-core ARM CPU, 4 GB of memory, and it has a 2.5-inch user installable hard drive slot. For inputs, it has coax, optical, USB-B, Bluetooth, and ARC, which is that audio return channel. Now, I've never used one, but it seems like a really handy source, so I'm absolutely going to be checking it out at Max Digital.
Brian, as you know, this is not a DAC.
No, it is not.
This is not digital at all.
Nope.
It's as analog as can be.
Yeah.
It's the FiiO CP13. CP stands for cassette player. And it's FiiO's, I think it's their tribute to the Sony Walkman cassette players from, I guess, the 70s,
70s
80s.
and 80s, yeah.
I mean, even a little bit into the 90s, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And then
I went full CD in the 90s.
then
but
we were
yeah,
CDs
yeah.
in the 90s. True. Actually, I was CD in the 80s.
I was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you are young enough to have never used a cassette player, go to FiiO's exhibit to listen to the CP13. Of all the new products in 2024, this is one of my favorite new products just because it is so fun.
Right.
And it really brought me back in time. It's like a time machine.
Yeah.
I had to look all over my house for my cassette albums, which I hadn't used in so many years, so that I could listen to them through the CP13. And I had so much fun, and I've had so much fun doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you listen to this, you'll hear tape hiss.
Right.
But you're hearing all analog sound. And my son asked me, he's young enough to have never used a cassette player, and he asked me, how does it work? And I was laughing so hard.
Good luck answering that.
Yeah, I didn't know how to exactly answer that. He says, if it's not digital, how does it make sound? And I told him to look it up on the internet. But if you're going to be at CanJam Shanghai, do not miss the FiiO CP13 at FiiO's exhibit, just because it is so fun to use.
Now, I'm all for analog sound, but let's be honest, most of my life has been in the digital domain. So I'm very familiar with the digital to analog converters, and FiiO came out with a wonderful desktop digital to analog converter this year called the FiiO R9.
Right.
Now, many may remember the FiiO R7. I say remember, it's a year old. But it's a desktop component that does a lot of things, and it does a lot of things well. Well, the R9 is kind of like the R7 on steroids. So the R7 has one of THX's AAA 788 Plus amplifiers inside, and this has a 788 Plus amplifier as well in the R9, but this one has pretty much twice the power.
Yeah,
It's
7,300 milliwatts output at 32 ohms.
Yep. And this one has dual ESS ES9038 Pro DACs inside as well.
Right.
And when I say that this does a lot of things, I mean a lot of things. So the R7 had a lot of ins and outs. Those same ins and outs are here, and they've added HDMI to this. So you mentioned before that you've used the R7 and now the R9, kind of like a desktop DAC amp combo.
That's pretty much how I use it entirely.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because of things like the HDMI, I've been able to incorporate it into a PlayStation system. I've been able to hook it up to a television and use the audio return channel to get Netflix out of my TV into a headphone system. It's so very flexible, and it doesn't take up much space, which you'd kind of expect it would because the screen is massive. It's 6 inches, and you can interact with it like you would a desktop or a portable player in a desktop format.
Right.
It's got some built-in storage, so you can put your music on there. You can hook up networked solutions. You can pop an SD card in there. It's just very, very flexible.
It's also Roon ready.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
So if you're a Roon user, and
Yes.
I use Roon a lot,
Yeah.
then that's a really nice feature. Again, you use more of its functionality than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, I pretty much use the R9 and the R7 almost entirely in a very simple desktop DAC amp role.
Right.
And I also use it as a, like you also mentioned, like a desktop digital audio player that I can interface on the screen with.
Exactly.
And for me, that's how I use them. You use them for a lot more. But to me, at CanJam Shanghai, if you're looking for an all-in-one type device in a small form factor, if you have a small desk and you don't want to take up that much room, the R9 and the R7, but if you can spring for the R9,
Get the
go for the
R9 if you
R9. Definitely do not miss the FiiO R7 and R9 at FiiO's exhibit because they're actually incredible components.
Now, another new desktop component that FiiO is unveiling this year will be shown for the first time at CanJam Shanghai, and that is the FiiO K11 R2R. Now, if you're familiar with the K11 R2R is basically a DAC change from the standard DAC found in the K11 to an R2R that supports 24-bit. If you're not familiar with the K11 is a very small desktop DAC amp combo. It supports, or it outputs 1,400 milliwatts of power into 32 ohms. And it has 3 gain settings and 3 volume curves, which I think is kind of neat because you can adjust how you want the volume to respond. Has adjustable RGB lighting and a pretty standard arrangement of inputs and outputs. You've got USB-C, optical, and coax for the inputs, and then RCA 4.4 millimeter and 6.35 for the outputs. But I'm very interested to hear an R2R DAC from FIO.
So am I. So some of my favorite DACs are R2R DACs.
Yeah.
There are a lot of R2R DAC enthusiasts in our community. And as well engineered as FIO's products are, I'm so curious to hear what an R2R implementation sounds like from FIO.
Me too.
So the K11 R2R will definitely be at or near the top of my list of things to audition at CanJam Shanghai for sure.
Now, one DAC amp combo that we have spent considerable time with is the FIO K19. The K19 is the tall, slender fellow that you see down here on my end of the table, and it is FIO's, I'd say, probably flagship desktop DAC amp combo.
I think it is.
I think that's a pretty safe estimate. And inside, they're going to find the ESS ES9039S Pro DAC. There's two of those in a dual configuration. And the THX AAA 7088 Plus amplifier, which may sound familiar. It's configured to output 8,000 milliwatts into 32 ohms when you're running balanced, when you're running through the ultra high gain output. There are multiple gain output settings on this, which you can easily just swap between using the built-in dial and the little tiny screen, which I also love that screen rotates when you go between landscape and portrait. I love it. And it has a lot of the same functionality of like the R9, a lot of the inputs and outputs, but it's in a more conventional desktop DAC amp combo, which I think is why it's been spending a lot of time with you actually recently.
Yeah, I've been using the K19 a lot.
You have.
And as I mentioned with the R9 and the R7, I use them mostly as desktop DAC amps in a very simple use case.
Right.
The K19 for me, because it doesn't have the screen, it's just more conventional as a DAC amp, is the one I've been using. And the thing I will say is, from a technical standpoint, right, I feel like FIO is really, this is their answer to all those really fantastically well-measuring DACs that have become very popular.
Yep.
But even though it's a technical powerhouse, it also sounds fantastic. Now, for all the gain modes, because I've been using it mostly with IEMs lately, I've been using mostly the lowest gain mode and then all the way up to like its medium gain.
Right.
But again, even in ultra high gain output, if you want to drive something that's a headphone that's very hard to drive, you can, because it has up to 8,000 milliwatts output. What a wonderful product. It feels flagship.
Yep.
Like the R9, it's so beautifully built. The chassis is so gorgeous, so meticulously crafted. I should also mention that you can set it on its, you can put it flat as well, like horizontally.
Yeah.
You don't have to put it vertically, and the screen rotates for that use as well.
Yes.
Which is nice. Now, in case you're wondering what is on top there, when you have it in the stand-up mode, the vertical mode, that comes with that. It's a headphone holder, so that you can use the K19 as a headphone stand.
Right.
And it seems to run cool enough that it's, I haven't had any issues even putting big headphones on it or anything like that with respect to heat. Love the K19. Feels like a flagship product. I think from FIO, it is definitely a flagship DAC amp. That is absolutely a can't miss. And for what it does and for the specifications, for the engineering level, it is so reasonably priced. Now, while we're talking about reasonably priced flagship performance products from FIO, let's talk about this one. I've been using this a lot.
You have.
So this is the FIO M23. It is I think it's their latest digital audio player.
It is their most recent, yes.
It's their most recent. And this is a very special player. I think it replaces the M11 Plus.
It does.
Okay, so it replaces the M11 Plus. In terms of form factor, in terms of chassis and controls, it's almost identical.
Yeah, very similar.
But what they did is inside of this reasonably priced player, very reasonably priced player, they put AKM's flagship combo DAC.
Right.
The AK4191 EQ and AK4499 EX combo. That is something that you find in the highest end players right now.
Right.
This is, as far as I know, the most affordable digital audio player that uses that combo, that AKM flagship setup.
Yes.
It has a 4-channel THX AAA 7.8 Plus amp section that outputs up to 1,000 milliwatts at 32 ohms in desktop mode. And that's selectable with a switch. 5.5-inch multi-touch HD display. So it's essentially an M11 Plus with the updated DAC, I think an updated amp, like an up-spec'd amp, so more powerful output. And it sounds wonderful. this is an incredible value because you're getting the same type of DAC setup that, again, is being used in much more expensive digital audio players in this chassis, in this M11 type chassis, and it's affordable. I've been using it a lot because I can drive anything with it for the most part that I would want to drive while I am on the go.
Right.
And I would say for the digital audio players I've used so far, it might be one of the best values, if not the best value digital audio player I've used so far. And so for me, even if you're shopping for a flagship DAP, even if you're looking at $2,000, $3,000, you know, the higher end stuff,
right?
Don't ignore the M23. At least try it to compare to those. It's that good. So to me, this is a can't miss product. FIO's exhibit. It's portable. So to me, it's almost like a K19 or an R9 squeezed into a DAP. And I still can't believe for the price they're using AKM's flagship setup. I think that's wonderful.
Now, one more addition I do want to make sure we mention. It's a recent launch from FIO. It's the FIO SP3BT, which is down here at the end by me. It is the Bluetooth version of the original SP3 speaker, which I believe came out last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, on HeadFi, we don't talk about loudspeakers
Not
very
that often. Yeah.
But I think we have to talk about these.
We do.
Yeah, they're very cool.
They are very cool. And if you take a look at them, they pair visually very nicely with the FIO R9. That's by design.
Right.
But the SP3BT features a 3.5-inch carbon fiber woofer and a 1-inch silk tweeter, which is an excellent size for desktop use, if you ask my personal opinion. It has Bluetooth 5.0 with AAC, aptX adaptive, and LDAC codecs. And you can basically use this as a full desktop system if you integrate it with the FIO R9 or the R7. Set it up with your desktop rig, set it up with your gaming system or your TV or whatever you want to do, and you have plenty of functionality there, and it gives you the option to just take the headphones off, which we don't do all that often, but every now and then it's nice to just take them off and get stereo sound.
Yeah, so because you can use it with other systems. Anything where you have an active speaker system would be useful.
Exactly.
You can use them because of the Bluetooth functionality. Even if you just want to keep the speakers in your room or your office, and then when you come in with your phone, just Bluetooth to them and then play music.
Yep.
So you have essentially a 2-channel system fronted by your phone.
Yep.
So it is an extremely versatile, very affordable Bluetooth loudspeaker setup. And yeah, that also, again, we don't talk about speakers very much, but at FIO's exhibit, I would say that's a can't miss.
4Ear is joining us at CanJam Shanghai, and they're bringing with them the Oris Hedonia 300B tube amplifier, which, like you'd expect, is a single-ended 300B tube headphone amp and preamp with up to 7 watts of power. Inside, you'll find German-made Mundorf capacitors, Lundahl transformers, and a Japanese Alps potentiometer, all housed inside of a milled aluminum chassis. It has dual RCA and XLR inputs, and 6.35mm and 4-pin XLR headphone outputs. It even has a switchable output impedance. Tube lovers will not want to miss the Oris Hedonia 300B at 4Ear's exhibit.
I recently saw the Topping DX9 in person at Munich High-End, and it looked beautifully built. Topping is probably best known for making relatively affordable audio electronics with outstanding measured performance, and I believe the DX9 is their flagship DAC and headphone amplifier combo. The Topping DX9's DAC is powered by the AKM 4499 EQ DAC chip, which Topping describes as rare and legendary, as I believe this was the flagship AKM DAC chip prior to the massive fire at AKM's factory in 2020 in Japan. Topping says the AKM 4499 EQ is like having 2 of AKM's current flagship AK 4499 EX chips working in tandem, and it's paired with the AK 4118 ultra-low jitter SP diff receiver. The DX9's amplifier section uses Topping's 6-channel discrete nested feedback composite amplifier. The DX9's amplifier stage is rated for 7,000 milliwatts of output per channel with distortion below 0.00009%. It also uses a hybrid relay volume network that combines resistor and relay-based control for precise volume control and optimized signal-to-noise performance. And both the DAC and headphone amplifier circuits in the DX9 are powered independently. I haven't had a chance yet to listen to the Topping DX9 yet, but we'll make sure to do so at CanJam Shanghai. I'll also be sure to check out the rest of Topping's product line while I'm there.
Now, returning to the world of R2R DACs, HIFIMAN has 3 new launches that are very recent: the EF499, the EF500, and the EF1000 DAC. I'd like to start with their EF499 and the EF500.
Yeah.
Now, they look very similar, and they also share a lot of similarities inside. For example, they both have USB-C, coax, and Ethernet inputs. They both have dual 3-pin XLR and stereo RCA outputs for analog connecting up to another device, and it has headphone output of 4-pin XLR and 6.35 millimeter. And finally, there are multiple gain settings and a couple of cool features that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But what's different is the DAC. So the HIFIMAN EF499 uses a non-named R2R DAC. I think it's a Philips design, but they don't actually name it.
They haven't specified it, but I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think it is Philips.
Yeah. And then the EF500 has HIFIMAN's Himalaya DAC architecture inside. So if you want to get a taste of R2R DACs, and these are good tastes, by the way. They taste very nice.
And they're also very, very affordable.
They are.
Yeah.
Definitely start with these. So the EF499, HIFIMAN says that it feels like their Himalaya, but it's not quite there. And I agree. It sounds nice, though, and very, very, very affordable, like you were saying. But the EF500, I think, is kind of going to be that sweet spot because it's a very affordable system that has the Himalaya architecture.
Yeah.
And when you listen to HIFIMAN's Himalaya DACs, we've talked about other products already that have those.
So most DACs I'm going to mention real quick are, I mean, we didn't really touch on this in the FIO segment, but most DACs today are Delta Sigma DACs. The old DACs, like going back to the first gen DACs, when, say, CDs first came out, they were almost all, in fact, I think they were almost entirely R2R DACs. And when they went to Delta Sigma DACs, R2R DACs just kind of went away.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people are R2R DAC enthusiasts. They like the way they sound. I'm one of those people who seems to enjoy a lot of the R2R DACs that are out there that we've had here.
Right.
The EF499 and EF500 are R2R DACs. And I think a lot of people are curious about the sound of R2R DACs. How do they differ? And when you're talking about these kind of price points that are very affordable, it's a great way to listen to them because they sound like R2R DACs.
Right.
And so, to me, these are can't-miss DAC amps at HIFIMAN's exhibit because I think it'll satisfy the curiosity of those who want to know what R2R DACs sound like. Why is there an enthusiast community that loves the sound of R2R DACs, good R2R DACs? And these are good R2R DACs for a reasonable price. So, to me, these are can't-miss at HIFIMAN's exhibit. Now, the HIFIMAN EF499 and EF500 are HIFIMAN's affordable R2R DAC amp combos.
Right.
But this one in front of me, this very large one, is not affordable.
True.
This is the HIFIMAN EF1000 DAC.
Yep.
I believe it's their current flagship
I think so.
DAC amp combo. And again, it's expensive.
Right.
It's big.
Yes.
But it's very special. It's fantastic. And it uses 4 HIFIMAN Himalaya Pro DACs inside, which is the highest realization, the highest version of HIFIMAN's Himalaya R2R DAC architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fantastic.
Right.
But the amp section is also very noteworthy. So the amp section has a newly developed, fully discrete operational amplifier module in the input stage and a fully balanced amplifier output with a combination of field effect transistors and standard transistors as well. So it's designed to drive just about anything. And, of course, they would love you to drive their planar magnetic headphones.
Of course, yeah.
And especially the HIFIMAN SUSVARA, and even maybe more especially now the new flagship HIFIMAN SUSVARA Unveiled. I did hear that combo at Munich High-End. They gave me a really like a secret listening session with it.
Yep.
And it was incredible. World class. So at HIFIMAN's exhibit, yes, listen to the EF499 and EF500 if you're curious about an affordable implementation of R2R and a great sounding R2R DAC combo. But if you want to hear cost no object, world-class R2R DAC performance, definitely listen to the HIFIMAN EF1000 DAC, and especially with that SUSVARA Unveiled.
Let Shure will be showing off something new. They're showing off the DT03 dongle DAC. Now, the DT03 features dual ESS ES9219C DACs, which support PCM32384 and DSD256. It can deliver up to 195 milliwatts of power via the 3.5mm or the 4.4mm jacks. It has USB-C input, high and low gain settings, and even dedicated volume control. This is one that's absolutely worth checking out at CanJam Shanghai. At CanJam Shanghai, there will be launch events from Focal and Sennheiser, as well as seminars from industry experts, including Rob Watts from Chord Electronics, presenting an introduction of the Mojo 2 and the technology in Chord DACs. Robert Liu from Knowles Corporation will present Driving Listening Experience Excellence, Opportunities and Wins in IEM Design with Balanced Armatures. And Dr. Wang Li from HBK, Hottinger Berlin Care, will present Headphone Electroacoustics Performance Testing. We'll expect to be announcing even more launch events and seminars as we get closer to CanJam Shanghai.
Okay, we've saved the largest for last, and it's finally time to talk about in-ear monitors. Now, China has so many IEM lovers that I think people have been waiting to get here in the video. So let's go ahead and start with something strong, something that you and I both appreciated when we listened to it ahead of CanJam Singapore earlier this year. This is the Campfire Audio Fathom. Now, the Campfire Audio Fathom is a 6BA designed IEM. It has dual custom high-definition super tweeters, dual mid-range drivers, and dual custom BA woofers. The housing is made out of machined aluminum, and it has what they call a black anodized bright dipped finish. It's a beautiful finish on that.
Yeah, it's almost hard to show the beauty in a photo.
That is difficult. Now, there's a part of this that's not hard to show in a photo, and that is the prismatic rainbow PVD stainless steel fasteners and MMCX connectors. I love that color. It's like a chromatic, it's like a swirl.
It's like multiple colors.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. And each one is individual. So the way that PVD is finished, yours is going to look, unique to you. Okay. I love that. When you buy it with the kit, it comes with 2 time stream cables, one in 3.5 millimeter and one 4.4 millimeter balanced. And it also comes with a black leather folding case, which
it's like a dimensional leather pouch. It's actually very nice.
Yeah, and we love leather goods, so it's nice to see that.
Yes.
They said the goal for the Fathom was to design. The design is to provide a sound that is true to the original recording, allowing you to hear your music with clarity and depth. That's accurate.
I would say that's accurate.
And now, ahead of Singapore, I spent most of my time with this because it was the in-ear that I was using while I was shooting photography, processing photos. I just kind of gravitated towards this. You didn't get a lot of time with it.
Right.
But, oh man, I love the sound signature on this thing.
Yeah, you were a big fan of the Fathom. When I finally got a chance to hear it, so was I.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I find that to be a signature that I was so happy to hear. I think when they do some of their all-BA designs from Campfire Audio can be so special.
Yeah.
And I was probably more thrilled with this than I have been in a while from Campfire's in-ears. Like, I felt like they went back to a signature that I could just absolutely identify with.
Yeah.
Because I loved, for example, the Andromeda,
Right.
the Andromeda 2020, the Solaris, and then this one just absolutely works for me.
Yeah. It's a little smoother than I would usually go to, but there's such a nice clarity and resolution in that upper register that it just spoke to me.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this piece, and I think a lot of people at CanJam Shanghai are going to love it too.
Yeah, and if people have listened to Campfire, some of their other offerings have a lot of bass emphasis.
Many of them do, yeah.
Yeah, and if that's what, if for this, if you want a Campfire that doesn't have as much, like kind of more, I would say more neutral through there, through the bass, that's a great choice.
But still feels like Campfire through and through.
Correct. Even newer than the Campfire Audio Fathom is this one that they just announced. This is the Campfire Audio Moonrover.
Yes.
This is a full-range 12-millimeter planar magnetic driver design. So single driver per side. That's a pretty good-sized planar magnetic driver.
Yeah, it is.
Now, I want to talk very briefly about how it looks. Of course, how it sounds is most important, but this one looks so beautiful, I have to just talk about it.
Yeah, it's striking.
Striking. So it's a limited edition. They're only going to make 888 units. So if you want a pair, get them. They're going to sell out fast. They have titanium shells. We both love titanium accessories. We have titanium watches, titanium handled knives. But the titanium on this, the titanium shells on the Moonrover, they're individually flame treated, which causes these blossoms of blue color to come forth. They're gorgeous.
They are.
And then they have the gold-plated tri-lobe screws that are a beautiful contrast to it. And because they're hand flame treated, they're all going to look a little different.
Right.
So that's kind of nice with the limited edition. So I love the way they look, but I also love the way they sound. This is the most important thing, of course. And those full-range 12-millimeter planar magnetic drivers are very special in these.
Right.
Now, they say a couple things about it. Campfire Audio does. They say it has a cohesive, well-rounded signature offering wonderful texture and resolution. Absolutely true. Very detailed, great texture and resolution, of course.
Yep.
Those planar magnetic drivers are doing what we would hope they would do in an in-ear. But somehow what I love is that they're also kind of forgiving.
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't like sacrifice detail. So I love that. It's a unique characteristic.
Yeah, it's a difficult trick to pull off.
It's a difficult balance, a difficult trick to pull off. It's very rare. They also say Moonrover is a beautiful synthesis of Campfire's past, present, and future. I also agree with that because I'm listening to the Moonrover and sometimes I feel like I'm hearing elements of models past, like the Andromeda 2020,
right?
Solaris, Supermoon.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm hearing other models sometimes, but yet it has its own unique signature. Now, on the forums, Campfire Audio said it's maybe their most neutral of their current models. I could see why they would say that. Because in terms of bass, for example, it's not as bass emphasized as some of their popular models like the Trifecta.
Right.
And for me, that sits better with me. I prefer that. But again, that signature, that detailed yet forgiving signature, lovely imaging with it. It images well. I'm loving those planar magnetic drivers in it.
Yeah.
This, to me, is a very important new IEM from Campfire Audio, and it's limited edition, so don't miss it. Of course, they have other models.
Right.
So there's the Fathom, of course, that you talked about, this one, the Moonrover, but also
The Supermoon,
the
Cascara, Trifecta.
the Trifecta, which is a bass-heavy favorite with the water cooler group. So don't miss all of these wonderful new IEMs at Campfire Audio's exhibit. When true wireless earphones first started coming out many years ago, I wondered how long it was going to be before we started getting hi-fi quality true wireless earphones. And I guess it took many years.
It did. It's been about a decade since they started hitting the market.
Is that how long it's been?
Yeah.
And these here, this is the HIFIMAN Svanar Wireless. They're the closest I've heard to the resolution of wired earphones. Even the very best of the true wireless I've heard, which is the HIFIMAN Svanar Wireless, they're not quite at the level of the best wired earphones. The best wired earphones are still going to be more resolving.
Right.
But this is the closest I've heard in true wireless, the most musical, most resolving true wireless earphones, actually I'd say by a margin that I've heard so far. We like them so much we have a couple of sets here.
Yeah.
So why is it so good? And I think the main reason, I've discussed this before, is the system approach that HIFIMAN took. So rather than just making kind of an all-in-one, inexpensive true wireless product, they decided to approach it as a mini audio system.
Right.
So I can't think of another maker of true wireless earphones that focuses on the DAC. And HIFIMAN put one of their Himalaya, a miniaturized version of their Himalaya R2R DAC,
right,
inside their Svanar Wireless, which I think is incredible. And then they focused on high-quality amplification. So they're not using cheap amplification. They're using and developed high-quality amplification. And then the driver is their topology diaphragm, which they use in their high-end wired in-ears.
Right.
And it all comes together to make, again, the most musical, most resolving true wireless I've yet heard. I'll use other true wireless in-ears to do things like Teams meetings and Zoom calls, but I don't listen to music through them. But when I want to listen to music through true wireless, I use the Svanar Wireless.
Right.
It's that good.
Yeah.
So at HIFIMAN's exhibit, definitely do not miss the HIFIMAN Svanar Wireless. I want to mention very quickly that it also is Bluetooth 5.2.
It is.
Has active noise cancellation, touch operation, support for LDAC. Oh, I want to mention that. If you want the best sound from them in my use, it's been through an Android phone with LDAC. It still sounds fantastic with AAC. So if you're an iPhone user, of course, AAC is going to matter. But if you really want to squeeze that last bit of resolution from them, I've found that LDAC through my Samsung phone is the best way to do it. It's also IPX5 water resistant.
Right.
So, yeah, this is a can't miss at CanJam Shanghai.
But that's not the only one, because HIFIMAN did also launch the Svanar Wireless LE and the Svanar Wireless Junior.
Okay.
Now, the LE does have a HIFIMAN Himalaya DAC. It has the Himalaya LE inside of it. It's not going to give you the same level of performance as the full-fledged Svanar Wireless will, but you do save some money. Right. So that's a nice trade-off. If you want to get into the HIFIMAN R2R DAC in a true wireless system without going all the way in on a Svanar Wireless, I'd say that's the one to start with. They also have the Svanar Wireless Junior, which does not have R2R technology inside. I think it's just a standard regular DAC. But It's very affordable. I mean, very affordable. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you get an extra hour of runtime. So I think the Svanr Wireless and the LE both give you about 7 hours of playback.
So the Svanr Wireless and the Svanr Wireless LE, 7 hours of runtime per charge, 28 hours total.
Right.
With the recharges.
Yep.
And then, like you mentioned, the Svanr Wireless Junior has extra battery life. That's 8 hours of runtime per charge with 32 hours of total runtime with recharges.
Exactly.
So yeah, this again, I recommend first starting off. I haven't heard the LE and the Junior yet.
I haven't either. I wanted to in New York, but I didn't get the chance.
I didn't either. I meant to listen to it at CanJam Singapore, and I didn't yet. So okay, we'll promise then. You and I will go to HIFIMAN's exhibit together and make sure to listen to the LE and the Junior. But we have heard this plenty of times,
right? And
this is a can't miss. The HIFIMAN Svanr Wireless at HIFIMAN's exhibit.
Now, when it comes to in-ears, we often have our favorites. But there's usually your favorites, and there's usually my favorites.
We have generally very different tastes.
Yeah, we don't overlap all that often.
Not often.
There are a few, and when they do overlap, it's usually something quite special, like this. This is the Sennheiser IE900.
Yes.
We both adore this in-ear. Now, it's their flagship wired in-ear, and oh man, is it so nice.
It is.
So everything from the construction to the signature to even just the accessories that it comes with, it's a wonderful package through and through. So it's a single driver dynamic, and it has a precision milled and anodized aluminum housing, which, like I said, the machining on that is exquisite.
It is.
But then it also has inside some really cool design tweaks, like they have a Helmholtz resonator inside,
right,
to deliver what I consider a very fun, sometimes pushing the limits of my bass a little bit, but I can still really get into it and have a lot of fun, a lot of energy up top that's really nice and clear. And it's just something I can listen to for hours and just have so much fun getting into the music.
Yeah, the engineering. So we did a whole video review.
We did.
About the Sennheiser IE900.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another one of those ones that we like so much that you and I both liked it so much we had to have 2 units here.
Yeah.
And we both carry them a lot.
Yes.
And the IE900, the Helmholtz resonators you mentioned, they use essentially like a 3-chamber side volume design Helmholtz resonator.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's brilliant. And it's mostly to sculpt the treble.
Mm-hmm.
And the quality of the construction, the quality of the machining to get those Helmholtz resonators in there, not many manufacturers, I don't think, could do that.
Yeah.
But Sennheiser did it, and I wasn't surprised to see their engineers pull that one off. The signature of that, like you said, there is nice bass richness. I figured that is probably closer to your limits.
It is.
It is bass emphasized, but I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's rich sounding, and it does slam.
Yeah.
For what it is, a single driver dynamic earphone. The resolution though also.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of the Sennheiser in-ears, I think it's the best one they've ever made.
No doubt.
In terms of sound signature. I know some people, at Sennheiser's exhibit, listen to the IE900. Some people for actually IE600.
Some do, yeah.
But for me, the preference is clearly the 900.
Mm-hmm.
So that, to me, I agree with you, is a can't-miss product at Sennheiser's exhibit. Another can't-miss Sennheiser in-ear is a True Wireless.
Yeah.
It's the Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless 4.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of my 2 favorite True Wireless in-ears. This is the best sounding True Wireless in-ear they've made. The Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless, the first generation one, and the True Wireless 2.
Right.
I had to EQ.
Yeah.
To take the bass down, kind of make it a little more neutral for me.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with the Momentum True Wireless 3, though, I wasn't EQing it. I was using the default tonal balance.
Which is a shame because that's when their EQ app got really nice.
yeah. It's true. But with the Momentum True Wireless 4,
yeah,
they took it up a notch. They kind of upped the technology, if you will,
mm-hmm.
with it. So it has support for Qualcomm aptX lossless, and they now have adaptive noise cancellation.
Right.
The noise cancellation is quite good.
Yeah.
And a 6 mic system for outgoing voice. Voice quality is quite good. I don't think people realize with some of Sennheiser's products, I won't say all of them that have microphones,
mm-hmm.
some of them have pretty incredible outgoing voice.
Oh, they do.
To this day, I think it's a 12-year-old Bluetooth earpiece.
I think it's older than that.
I think it's 12 or 13 years old. It's the Sennheiser Presence. I still carry that and use that to I talk on the phone a lot,
mm-hmm.
and I still use that. This has actually really good outgoing voice.
Yeah.
So Sennheiser's experience with speech quality, I think, is important here, and that matters. It has 7.5 hours of runtime, 30 with the charging case, 1 hour of play with an 8-minute charge. I like that feature.
Yeah.
So that when your battery's dead, you just give it an 8-minute charge, you get an hour of play. In terms of its sound signature, I would say I wouldn't call it neutral in the sense of a studio type neutrality, but I'd say neutral for true wireless.
Oh, yeah.
Prominent bass, but definitely well within my range of preference. And excellent resolution. So high resolving power for a true wireless in-ear. Again, one of my two favorite true wireless in-ears.
Yep.
And this is another can't miss earphone at Sennheiser's exhibit.
Let's Sure will have their new Cadenza 4 at CanJam Shanghai, and based on what I've been hearing on the forums, this reasonably priced hybrid IEM may end up being a surprise hit. The Cadenza 4 pairs a 10mm dual-chamber beryllium-coated dynamic driver with 3 balanced armature drivers from both Sonian and Knowles to deliver what Let's Sure describes as a signature packed with resolution, rich in mid-frequency detail, and ample treble extension. The body is 3D printed and the faceplate is made from CNC'd aluminum alloy, and it's all given a matte finish. The photographs make it look like a classy, subtle, almost understated design to my eyes. It even comes with 3 swappable connectors. I'm curious to hear more about the Let's Sure Cadenza 4, so join me in checking it out at the show. Unique Melody will be showing the 2 newest members of their Mason family, the Nuit Etoile and the Soleil Tomba, I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly, 2 different colorways but with the same 13 driver arrangement inside. That includes 4 bass BA drivers, 4 mid BA drivers, 2 mid treble BA drivers, 2 treble BA drivers, and 1 of Unique Melody's BC Turbo bone conduction drivers. Aesthetically, the Nuit Etoile speaks to me more, and Unique Melody calls it the Starry Night, paying homage to what is considered Van Gogh's most iconic painting, though I prefer irises myself. Anyway, you'll be able to find both the Mason Fabled Sound Nuit Etoile and the Soleil Tomba at Unique Melody's exhibit. Bass lovers, get ready because Fat Freak is bringing their Scarlett Mini to CanJam Shanghai. We've talked about the Scarlett Mini's unapologetically bassy sound signature, and I've even called it a love letter to true bass heads. Inside the Scarlett Mini lives an arrangement of proprietary dynamic woofers, bass chambers, and an acoustic damping network design to create what Fat Freak calls a bass cannon of an IEM. That's an excellent name because it truly is an explosive experience. It creates a wall of bass coming at you point blank and in full force. And that bass is very well managed. Now, for my preferences, the feature that sticks out most is Fat Freak's proprietary tubeless hyper tweeter system. Once you get past the sheer volume, resolution, and texture of the Scarlett Mini's low end, you'll find that the sound through the mids and treble is well done. But keep in mind, to my ears, the Scarlett Mini is a basshead's dream IEM, and the true star of the show is everything down low. Make sure to check out Fat Freak's Scarlett Mini at CanJam Shanghai and get a taste of its unabashed signature.
As you know, this is one of my reference IEMs, one of the few that I carry with me just about everywhere.
Right.
This is the Visioneers VE10.
Yep.
You know, I also like to tell stories.
You do.
I'm going to tell a story about the VE10. So I think I told this in another preview video. It was last year, CanJam London. I was talking to one of the most respected IEM engineers, I would say, in the world. He doesn't work for Visioneers. He works for another company. And we were sharing thoughts on which IEMs we've really enjoyed listening to. And he asked me if I'd listened to the Visioneers VE10 yet. At the time, it was brand new, essentially. It was a very new model. I said I had not heard it yet. He said, go listen to it. I said, what about it do you like so much? He said, well, it has one 8mm dynamic driver for bass, and I cannot believe the texture, impact, and detail they're getting from that one dynamic driver. It's fantastic. He said it's among the best in terms of bass presentation that he's heard from any IEM.
Right.
And he said the rest of the balance is great too. Just go listen to it. So I did. Went over to Visioneers exhibit. I think it was Marcel who let me listen to it.
Yep.
During setup, and I fell in love with it right away, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. And then later that year, at Tokyo,
the PotoFest for e-earphone show.
the e-earphone show in Tokyo, they were there exhibiting, and I listened to the VE10 again, and I knew we had to have one here at HEDFI HQ. So it's been one of my constant companions ever since. Let's talk about it. So the VE10 was made to celebrate 10 years of Visioneers, their 10th anniversary, and it has 10 drivers.
Yep.
I think that was obviously deliberate. It's a 5-way design, 10 drivers. So there's that one 8mm dynamic driver with acoustic low pass. Again, incredible bass. 4 mid-low BAs, 2 mid BAs, 2 mid high BAs, 1 super tweeter BA. And that's one thing I will say from the balanced armature designs they do. And again, this has the one dynamic, but everything above it is balanced armature. Visioneers does such a wonderful job of getting extended, beautifully present treble.
Yeah.
So I love how they do that. I also should mention they're also good with their EST designs, the ones that use electrostatic tweeters.
They are, yeah.
They're amazing at getting good voicing, excellent voicing out of an EST. Not easy to do,
No.
but they do it. I'll talk about one of those in just a second. But this does not have any ESTs, but it has this beautiful extended treble. Anyway, love the balance. I would call it neutral rich. So I'd say bass, low mids, there's richness, a little bit of richness there, which I kind of favor.
Right.
The rest of the balance, I would say neutral, linear, within the range of neutrality. Great imaging. It's one of my favorite in-ears. So I ran a MDACs score, an MDACs test on it. That's Head Acoustics Multidimensional Audio Quality Score. And it did very, very well. So for timbre, it scored 4.9 out of 5. For immersiveness, it was one of the best we've seen from MDACs at 4.7 out of 5 for immersiveness. For an in-ear, that's, I think, maybe the highest we've seen. And then 4.8 overall. So in this case, I agree with MDACs. It's a wonderful IEM. And so anyway, this for me, if you want to hear one of my reference IEMs that I use, carry with me almost everywhere, go to Visioneers exhibit, listen to the VE10. But we mentioned ESTs earlier,
Right.
the electrostatic tweeters. They do such a beautiful job voicing those as well.
They do.
And I guess we should recommend, I don't know, I think you agree with me, the EXT.
Yeah, that's a nice. Oh, it's so beautiful too.
It's so beautiful to look at. So that's the Visioneers EXT, which uses ESTs,
Right.
electrostatic tweeters. And that is another incredible IEM. Would love to have one of those too at some point, maybe. But anyways, don't miss Visioneers exhibit at CanJam Shanghai. Several years ago, a few of us visited QDC's headquarters in Shenzhen. And at the time, they were a new company to me, so I wasn't very familiar with QDC at the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, we went to visit their labs, and I was very impressed by their facilities there. So they had military displays everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I think they did military communications in addition to the music.
Yeah,
side
I
of
think they
things.
still do. I think they got their start in military communications.
Yeah.
And their lab was so impressive. They had a full anechoic chamber. I was a little jealous.
Of course.
I would love to have a full anechoic chamber.
Yes.
They also had AP analyzers everywhere, audio precision analyzers. And so I was very impressed by what they were doing there. We had a chance to audition their entire product lineup there. I ended up leaving with the QDC Anole VX. So I'll just go over the VX very quickly because it's still a current model.
Right.
And it's still one of my references for resolution, especially treble detail and resolution. It's phenomenal for that. I believe it's an all BA design.
I think so.
There are switches so you can alter its tonal balance, but that treble resolution is always there. I would say the treble presentations probably at the top of my preference, like higher than I'm usually listening,
I can see that, yeah.
but within my range of preference still. So I still love the Anole VX and still listen to it. All right. I'm talking about the Anole VX because it's also making me think of this new one that they just announced called the QDC Emperor.
Right.
I've seen it mentioned on the forums, I believe, with the Anole VX, like as a sort of either a successor to or an alternate to the VX. I would say more of an alternate, though.
I'd say alternate, yeah.
Because it doesn't sound anything like an Anole VX.
Right.
Now, the Anole VX is, again, an all-BA design, but the QDC Emperor, which I think is their new flagship or one of their flagships.
I think it's the new flagship.
Because it might be the new flagship.
Yeah.
But this is a 15-driver tribrid design. So it has one dynamic driver for ultra lows, 10 balanced armatures, so 4 low, 2 mid, 4 high for balanced armatures, and then 4 EST or electrostatic tweeters for the ultra highs. It's a 5-way crossover with 5 sound channels. The sound signature of the QDC Emperor, again, not like the Anole VX. It is not as treble forward, but it is quite mid forward.
Yeah.
And that gives it a lushness and a sort of richness and a romantic sound that I really, really like.
Right.
It probably would be more up my alley nowadays than the Anole VX. But I still love both in-ears, so I wouldn't want to have to pick one or the other. But if I had to, I'd say probably the Emperor is more my preference. And despite the fact that it is romantic sounding, kind of lush sounding with those mids, I think maybe it's the ESTs. It's just the way QDC is really good at getting detail out of their IEMs. It's still very detailed. The imaging is lovely. So the QDC Emperor would be my first choice to recommend for listening at the QDC exhibit.
It's also beautiful.
Oh my gosh, is it beautiful. So I love the faceplate especially.
Yeah.
The color, they call it pearl gray black shell. It's a lovely color, but that faceplate is, this makes it one of the more attractive IEMs I've seen.
Yep.
Now, this will be my first choice for CanJam Shanghai recommendations, but they do have a pretty full product lineup. I think you should listen to all of them. You like the 8-driver Studio IEM.
Yeah, I don't quote me on the name. It's like 8S or 8C or something like that.
I don't remember the exact
But it's an
name.
8-driver studio piece, and it sounds phenomenal.
So I heard the 8-driver Studio in here when we were at the lab, and I almost chose that over the Anole VX,
Oh,
but I
really?
ended up going with the VX. So I love that one too, though. So go to QDC's exhibit, listen to their full lineup. Definitely start with the QDC Emperor. Now, of all the products that I'm aware of that will be at CanJam Shanghai, this one I'm holding here, which is the new Meza Audio Alba IEM, I think will be the single most impactful within its category of all the products I'm aware of.
Really?
Yes, so in this entire video. Why? Because of its performance for the price. It's extremely affordable, and its performance for the price is out of this world. So I first listened to it at CanJam Singapore. They asked me to listen to it. They didn't tell me the price. They asked me what I thought. I told them it sounds fantastic. It sounds great. I love the neutrality. It's well within the range of neutrality for me. And enough so, and I mean this in a good way, enough so that I could see it being used as an affordable studio in-ear monitor.
Okay.
So I was so impressed by it. It images lovely. And the resolving ability is very good. It has a very nice cohesive sound, maybe helped by the fact that it's a single driver per side. If you can get the tonal balance you want with a single driver and get the sound you want from a single driver, then you don't have to worry so much about crossovers and matching up drivers. And they did a beautiful job. It's a single 10.8 millimeter dynamic driver per side. But for that price, they also include this, which is a USB dongle DAC. I couldn't believe they were throwing that in too. And I'm just so impressed by it. So I decided to run it through a battery of tests. And we started with Head Acoustics Multidimensional Audio Quality Score.
Right.
And it did extremely well.
Okay.
So its timbre score was 4.9 out of 5. Its overall score was 4.9.
Nice.
I then ran it through our Audio Precision Analyzer. In both cases, with the Head Acoustics and with Audio Precision, I used the Brulin Care 5128. And let's just show it on the screen, the distortion measurement. The distortion is extremely low. And for the price, when you look at just how it's performing overall, this is going to be extremely impactful in the IEM category. I think, and I told Meza this, I don't think they're going to be able to make these fast enough.
Right.
Because I think these are going to sell like crazy. So this, to me, is a very important product. It's also a beautiful product because you might think for the affordable price that it would be, chintzy, cheaply built. It's not. It's actually an anodized. It has anodized aluminum parts, a premium zinc alloy they're using as well, and it's just a lovely kind of an off-white. What would you call that? Like a pearl?
Pearl?
Yeah, like a pearl white, and it's just lovely. Meza's headphones and earphones are always beautiful to look at.
Yeah, they are.
And this is no exception. So for the price, I can't believe it. I still can't believe they're doing this for the price. This is one of the most important products, in my opinion, at CanJam Shanghai, and you definitely do not want to miss this. I actually prefer this to their higher-priced IEMs like the Advar.
Yeah.
I prefer the Alba. So don't miss this at Meza Audio's exhibit. FIO will be at CanJam Shanghai. And for the CanJam Singapore preview video, we talked a lot about the one you're holding, which is the FIO FA19.
We did.
I think that's their new flagship IEM.
Yes.
It's an all BA design. And that is by far the best IEM I think that FIO's ever released. I can say that very confidently.
Right.
It's so good that I think it's also the first IEM from FIO that competes with IEMs at any tier. So even if you're shopping for much more expensive IEMs, at least listen to the FIO FA19s as well.
Yeah.
That's how good I think it is. So it's a 10 balanced armature design. It does mention here in the notes they use Knowles custom bass boost BA drivers. They use audiophile grade thin film crossover capacitors, DLP 3D printed resin cavity, and they have a switch.
Yes.
Monitor and hi-fi mode switch. The monitor mode, to my ears, has a more like flat, a perceived flat bass signature.
Mm-hmm.
You like that one a
It's
lot.
a very nice signature.
You like it more than the other switch side, right?
I do prefer the monitor
So
side, yeah.
the other one is hi-fi mode.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this affects the bass. Hi-fi mode adds a little bit more bass impact, and I think it gets it right to where my preferences are. So I've used it a lot since Singapore, and I've been using the hi-fi mode more. Okay, as far as the mid-range goes, I would say it's very linear, very resolving.
Right.
Treble is on the higher side of my preference range, but not at the top. So well within my preference range. And it's very detailed as well.
Yes.
Images beautifully. Again, this is the best FIO in-ear, and again, I think it competes with any in-ear. So it's in those tiers. You've got to listen to this at FIO's exhibit.
Yeah, because
Now-
we were talking about in the Singapore preview video,
Yeah.
when I was listening to this, it gives me the sense of refinement. They've been working on this and polishing it for so long. It feels like they just made sure to do it right. Both signatures are phenomenal, and it's just a wonderful sound.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. When I visited FIO's facilities in Guangzhou, which they've since upgraded,
Yeah,
but even when I was there several years ago, it was one of the most impressive audio R&D facilities I've visited. And they've since improved it. The FIO FA19 to me sounds like they used all the resources from their labs to come out with their best IEM.
they did.
So I'm very excited by what they did with the FA19. For the last several years, FIO has just gotten better and better with their IEMs.
Yeah, they have.
The FA19 that we just talked about is probably the best example of that. But this new one that they just sent us, which is even newer than the FA19, is
Right.
another example. This is the FIO FD15. The name suggests, because we have very little information about it,
Yeah.
the name FD suggests dynamic driver.
Yes.
I think it's a single dynamic driver per side. So they gave us a few notes. Aluminum magnesium alloy DLC gasket diaphragm, I think, again, dynamic driver. DLC is diamond-like carbon. W-shaped independent gasket design. 1.5 Tesla external magnetic circuit.
Well, that one we can see.
That one we can see. That's a very strong magnet. So you can see here, the magnets are so strong, the earpieces, even when I wiggle them, stay together.
Yep.
Very strong magnet. Now it says 8.6 millimeter large voice coil. I think that's just the diameter of the voice coil, which is a pretty large voice coil if that's true.
Right.
Given the magnet strength, that doesn't surprise me. Tesla valve base loading acoustic patent technology. And then the housings are made of 316L stainless steel. The cable is actually very nice too. 480 wires of Furukawa monocrystalline copper silver blended cable. So much attention to detail paid to this. You can see in the construction quality. I still can't believe how strong that magnet is.
Right.
And the sound signature is also lovely. This one I'm enjoying a lot. So this is, I would call rich neutral.
Yeah.
And I think I say in at least one other segment of IEMs that if you can achieve your target with one driver, sometimes that is an advantage because of cohesive sound, not having to worry about many drivers or crossovers. And this has that sort of cohesive, lovely presentation, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. Now, I ran it through Head Acoustics MDACs just to see how it would score.
Yeah.
Because right when I heard it, I knew this is probably going to score well. And it scored on timbre 4.8 out of 5, overall score 4.6. So it did
Nice.
very well. It
Yeah.
did very well. And I can see why. I enjoy this. So this is the FIO FD15. Just because how new it is and how good it is, and then the FA19 especially, at FIO's exhibit, listen to the FA19, the FD15, and their growing line of IEMs. Elysian Acoustic Labs will be at CanJam Shanghai. I'm very excited about this. They're going to have these two new models. They were introduced at CanJam Singapore.
Yep.
You're holding the Elysian Acoustic Labs Pilgrim.
Right.
I'm holding the Pilgrim Noir.
Yes.
There's more than just the color and the cable that's different. There's differences inside, and that's important and worth mentioning. We'll get to that in a second. So let's start with yours. That's the Elysian Acoustic Labs Pilgrim.
Yep.
That's a 4-driver per side design, 1 dynamic driver for bass, and then 3 BAs in a 3-way crossover setup. Now, the goal, according to Elysian, for the Pilgrim is to open the door for people who love Elysian tuning but couldn't buy Diva and Annihilator, both of which are quite a bit more expensive.
Right.
The Pilgrim is I would say is very reasonably priced and actually quite affordable for the performance. Now, as for performance, the sound signature to me is another IEM that's within that range of neutrality. Again, that range is broad enough that you can have very different signatures within it.
Oh, yeah.
And that is still within that range to me, but the treble is on the more forward side, but lovely bass presence still. Like it has impactful bass, but the treble has some real presence to it that I think you probably love.
Oh, I like that a lot.
So for those of you who don't know, Brian tends to prefer headphones and in-ears that sound a little more, say, treble rich than I prefer. And I tend to prefer things that have maybe a little more bass than you like. When I heard that, I immediately knew you'd love it. So you do.
Yeah, I do. So I actually had a conversation recently just about this very IEM, and we were talking about rolling cables with it. And it was funny. The person I was talking to, we ended up actually agreeing that this is our favorite pairing combination so far. It's a effect audio cable and the Pilgrim itself, which I'll talk about that cable more in a little bit. But it was just such a fun conversation because I love this piece.
Yes, I figured you would.
Yeah.
Now, so again, neutral with nice treble presence, good bass impact. Now let's talk about the Pilgrim Noir. So it is different. So the Pilgrim Noir is also a 4-driver per side design, also 1 dynamic driver and 3 balanced armatures. But there are differences in those balanced armatures. I won't get into the details of it here. And it's a 4-way crossover versus a 3-way crossover.
Right.
So Elysian doubled up the mids drivers from the Pilgrim and swapped out the high-frequency balanced armature driver to refine the treble further.
Okay.
So, again, there are internal differences. There are driver differences. So they're not the same IEM.
Right.
It also comes with the Effect Audio Eros S cable in a colorway that fits the entire dark luxe vibe of the Pilgrim Noir. So it comes with a nicer cable.
Yeah.
And it is more expensive. And it is, I do like the black color.
It is pretty.
It is pretty. But the sound, to me, now you haven't heard this yet. It just arrived yesterday.
Yeah.
I heard it in Singapore and did the comparison. And now I've heard it here as well. The Pilgrim, to me, is phenomenal for the price. The Pilgrim Noir is more expensive. But the signature of the Pilgrim Noir, I prefer.
Okay.
They refined the treble, so it doesn't seem to me to be as treble bright as the original Pilgrim. They've refined that and smoothed it. And it gives it a little more smoothness and richness up top. But they've also tightened up the bass. So the bass, this definitely to me, for my ears, I describe this as more neutral. And they've tightened up the bass, so there's more resolution in the bass. Just to me, throughout, it's more refined. So I'm going to be curious to know what you think when you finally get a chance to hear it. I wouldn't be surprised if you prefer the original Pilgrim because of that treble richness.
Right.
But you may prefer the Pilgrim Noir. I prefer the Pilgrim Noir, but it is more expensive. Okay, these aren't the only 2 in-ears to hear. When you're at Elysian's exhibit, make sure to listen to the IEMs that made Elysian famous in our community. And that would be the Elysian Acoustic Labs Diva and the Annihilator. The Diva is I think that's an all-BA design.
I believe so.
And it has switches that you can change the signature with. It is so versatile with those switches and with its overall tonality that if I had to choose one pair of IEMs to live on a desert island with forever, it would be one of my candidates because of its versatility. The Annihilator is their flagship still. The Elysian Annihilator. Don't miss that one either. That one has what I think is one of the best implementations of the electrostatic tweeters I've heard so far. Lee, the lead engineer over at Elysian, just did such a beautiful job tuning those in the Annihilator. Then combined with its rich tonality, it's such an alluring sound signature. It's hard, which is why it's held in the highest regard among the very highest of all flagships is the Annihilator. Believe it or not, I'm not sure which I prefer. I think maybe most people prefer the Annihilator. For me, it's pretty close because the versatility of the Diva is hard to pass up. And I would say that on balance, it's a little more neutral than the Annihilator. So listen to both. Definitely listen to the Pilgrim and Pilgrim Noir at Elysian's exhibit at CanJam Shanghai.
Now, just a few minutes ago, I made reference to this cable. This is the Effect Audio Code 24C Limited Edition. And the reason why I referenced it is because it is paired with the Elysian Acoustic Labs Pilgrim. I love this combination. It sounds phenomenal together, and it's definitely one I'm going to recommend people try it at CanJam Shanghai.
Sure.
So let's first mention what's inside of this cable. So inside, you're going to find an 18.5 gauge 2-wire design with premium UP-OCC copper lits. It has 17 multi-sized core bundles inside, and it comes with support for both Connex and Termex. So it comes with a lot of features you come to expect from an effect audio cable, and it's I'm going to say one of my favorite looking cables I've ever seen. They think they call this a galactic purple.
It is lovely.
It is so beautiful. I love this color so much. I'm a big fan of purple in general. So this one's terminated in a 4.4 millimeter connection. So a lot of portable devices fully compatible with that. And here in the US, it's very affordable for limited edition cable.
Yeah.
I think they're only making 500 of these.
I think you're correct.
So there is a small number available in the overall market. And they say that the result is a vocal powerhouse cable that still provides impressive subs, reminiscent of the deepest lows achieved by their Code 23. Now, I haven't really spent any time with the Code 23, but I know a lot of people in our community have, especially the water cooler guys.
Yeah.
A lot of them had talked about the Code 23. So anybody that's checked out the Code 23 will want to check out the 24C Limited. I adore this pairing so very much. When you stop by the Elysian Acoustic Labs exhibit or the Effect Audio exhibit, if you can get this pairing together, do it. It is wonderful. But they also have a Code 24, a non-limited edition Code 24. I'm going to set this down real quick. So this is the Code 24. It is a blue cable. They call this a, what is the name? Cosmic Blue. And it is a 16.5 gauge 2-wire design. Now they call this, I believe, the most flexible, supple 16.5 inch or 16.5 gauge cable on the market. And it is very, very...
Because for an IEM cable, 16.5 gauge is quite thick.
Very thick.
And yes, it is quite... But even though it's thick, the Code 24 is quite flexible.
It is very flexible. Yeah. And this even comes in a full-size headphone. So you mentioned the in-ears. It's full-size and in-ear. There's one for each. So it has also the premium UP-OCC. This is silver-plated copper lits. It has 13 multi-sized core bundles inside and, of course, support for Connex and Termex, just like a lot of Effect Audio's cables. It's a little more expensive for the full-size headphone version, but you'll be able to take your favorite headphones to Effect Audio's exhibit and try both out there. So definitely bring whatever you want to try. They also have, for the termination side, I mentioned that they have the 4.4, but they also have other options. So it comes in a Lightning, a USB-C, both of those, or you can get just the 4.4 if you want to have a fixed termination. On the headphone side, you've got IPX, Pentacon, A2DC, MMCX, and 2-pin. So pretty much the full gamut of cable connectors you're going to expect to see. All in all, I'm still leaning more towards that 24C Limited. That's been my go-to. But this, I would definitely say stop by, try them both out. Effect Audio is going to be, probably bumping, I imagine.
Yeah, I think so. I think at least a few of the people from the water cooler thread on the headfi.org forums will be at CanJam Shanghai.
I think so, yeah.
And I'm mentioning them because the water cooler team loves to swap cables with their IEMs, to try different cables.
Yes.
For those, and for anybody else who's interested in cables, definitely stop by the Flash Acoustics exhibit at CanJam Shanghai. So this is the Flash Acoustics Thanos.
Yeah.
I think this is second down from the Flagship.
I think so.
Now, Flash Acoustics is held in high regard even by other cable makers I've talked to.
Right.
And the Thanos was recommended to me by one of the team members of one of the makers of the highest-end IEMs, some of the highest-end IEMs on the market.
Yep.
He saw that I was using the Ultron and said, you should also try the Thanos. So I picked up a Thanos, a CanJam SoCal, and I'm using it with the 64 Audio Velour. What a wonderful pairing. Now, the construction of the Thanos is quite complex.
Yeah.
We can show a quick cutaway view. What's inside is a custom Litz plus X-Cross plus nano silver gold, oil-soaked with silk wrapping.
Okay, I'll be honest, I don't know what some of that means, but it sounds nice.
It does sound nice. And again, it looks nice too. If you look at that cutaway diagram, you can see that in that diagram, if you look at the cable closely in person, you can see a lot of that actually in person too.
Yeah.
Now, the positive lead is gold-plated Aurora Hybrid and palladium-plated Aurora Hybrid plus 7N SC OCC copper. And the negative is silver-plated 5N OFC.
Okay.
Now, it comes terminated with 4.4 millimeter balanced, and that's on the source side. And on the ear side, it uses Connex Full. So you have the versatility of the full Connex system, which is nice. You can get these to fit with just about any IEM.
Yeah.
So again, if you're into swapping cables with your IEMs, trying different cables, do not miss Flash Acoustics exhibit and then the Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
But also make sure to look at the Ultron, the rest of their lineup too. But the Ultron's their flagship, and that was actually the first Flash Acoustics cable I picked up.
Right.
I don't even remember which show it was that I picked that up at. But that's the one I first picked up. It's their flagship. That also has very complex construction.
Right.
And I use that most of the time with the Elysian Annihilator.
Yeah.
Another wonderful pairing. So don't miss Flash Acoustics cables at CanJam Shanghai. At the Linsole exhibit at CanJam Shanghai, I definitely recommend people go listen to the Kiwi Ears and Crinical Singolo.
Absolutely.
Of course, Crinical is probably the most popular reviewer in our community.
Yep.
But lately, he's been focusing more on product collaborations than reviews.
Yeah, he just put out a video recently on designing an IEM.
Oh, he did? I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah.
So this is the Singolo. This is one of his most recent collaborations, this one with Kiwi Ears.
Mm-hmm.
And it's extremely affordable. By my definitions, very, very affordable. And for the price, the performance is fantastic. So I had a chance, actually, on a recent factory visit we did together. I had a chance to talk to Crinical for quite some time about the Singolo and how he tuned it. And he told me about what they're calling Kiwi Acoustic Resonance System.
Yep.
Or CARS. And from the notes, it says, uses a Helmholtz resonator to regulate its tuning as opposed to resistor capacitor networks. It's a labyrinthine tubing network, a discrete bandpass filter that manipulates airflow to the driver, regulating low-frequency output. And they say this is what makes the tight sub-bass shelf possible, which they say was not possible before in a single-driver IEM. Now, it is a single-driver per side, dynamic. It uses custom 11-millimeter dynamic driver and Japanese liquid crystal polymer LCP diaphragm. And the tuning, for me, is neutral. With all the talk that I had with Crinical about the bass shelf, I thought it was going to be maybe bass emphasized, but it is not. It is not bass emphasized. The bass instead is, like I perceive it as flat.
Right.
So it's within my range, my preference range, but I would say it's on the lower side of my preference range in terms of bass presence.
Mm-hmm.
It is tuned to Crinical's target, which I believe is called IEF neutral.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to call this a very neutral sounding IEM, actually, including the bass. And for the price, the performance is, again, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely, for me, a can't miss. I also want to mention just very quickly that it comes with a 2-pin termination for the ear side, so you can swap cables. But for the price, I would just stick with the cable that it comes with because it's just so affordable. But yeah, this one for me is an easy recommendation. So that's at the Linsole exhibit.
Now, this is a true wireless in-ear that we've talked about in a few preview videos. It's the Creative Labs Orvana Ace 2. Now, there is an Orvana Ace as well. Let's be honest, just get the Ace 2.
I agree.
The price difference is so negligible, and you get a really nice extra feature in this. So let's first break it down. Inside is an XMIMS driver and a 10-millimeter dynamic driver for a hybrid design, and I'll talk more on XMIMS in a second. And it has a 6-hour runtime, and you've got a full 24 hours of recharge in the case. It comes with Bluetooth 5.3 and an IPX5 rating, and it has a 3-microphone beamforming array for an outgoing voice communication system. It's a decent mic, especially at the price point.
Yes.
It's compatible with Siri and Google Voice. Now it has LC3, aptX lossless, aptX adaptive, aptX, AAC, and SBC. The Orvana Ace 2 has the aptX lossless. The Orvana Ace does not. And that's why I say just get the Ace 2, because the price difference is so small. Even if none of your devices currently support aptX lossless, it's like future-proofing for a very small amount of money.
I agree.
Definitely do that.
I agree.
This one comes in a translucent black and copper finish, and I think the Ace 2 looks better than the Orvana Ace. And again, priced so nicely.
It definitely looks better.
And now it does have that XMIMS driver, which is a micro speaker based in pure silicon.
Right.
And the reason why I say people want to try this is probably one of the few devices that I know of where you can actually hear XMIMS full implementation of their first generation driver. It has a sense of speed and resolution to it that you don't get out of a lot of in-ears in general.
Especially at that price.
Especially at the price point, and doubly especially so in a true wireless in-ear.
And a lot of people in our community have been really eager to hear something with an XMEMS driver.
Yeah.
And now you have your chance.
And for a very good price. So definitely stop by the Creative Labs exhibit. Try the Orvana Ace 2.
Camper is a very interesting story for me because I had not even heard of Camper prior to CanJam London last year.
Neither had I.
And so I did not expect, when I first heard the Camper CP622B, that's their flagship that you're holding,
Right.
I did not expect to hear one of the best IEMs at any price that I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
It is their flagship IEM.
Right.
It's expensive, but it is not even close to being the most expensive flagship on the market.
Oh, no.
So what makes it special? It's that mid-range. The mid-range on the Camper CP622B is so lifelike. There's so much beautiful imaging going on through the mids where you can pick out everything in the midband. And there's so much space and life and realism. It's hard to explain the special mid-range of the CP622B.
Well, I wonder if perhaps some of that specialness comes from their somewhat unusual arrangement for their drivers.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that they do have an unusual driver arrangement, and I do think that obviously that has to have something to do with it, like you said. It's a 10-driver tribrid.
Right.
6 Sonian balanced armature drivers, 2 Sonian electrostatic drivers, 2 Sonian bone conduction drivers.
But those bone conduction drivers, one is for the mid-range and one is for the mid-high, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at my notes right here, and you are correct.
Yeah.
And most bone conduction drivers work on the low end.
Exactly.
On the base. This is, like you said, mid and mid-high frequencies. I do think that has something to do with it. I do think that's why the imaging is quite magical on those.
Mm-hmm.
The CP622B, for me, one of the best IEMs, so don't miss that at Camper's exhibit. But there is another newer Camper model.
Right.
It actually is below the CP622B, so it's going to be somewhat less expensive.
Right.
And I'm holding that one. It's so new that I think they let a couple of people listen to it at CanJam Singapore, but I don't think that it was available to listen to publicly.
Right.
This is the Camper CP74E.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this brings a lot of the magic of the CP622B. It actually reminds me of it a lot. Tonally, they're quite similar. Now, I will say it doesn't have all the mid-range magic in terms of that sort of separation and imaging of the CP622B.
Right.
Let's talk about the drivers in this. This is a hybrid design, 2 types of drivers. It's 11-driver hybrid, 7 balanced armatures, 4 EST, electrostatic tweeters, 4 EST drivers. And this is in the flagship line, again, slotted right below the CP622B.
Right.
But it does not have the bone conduction drivers. Okay, so my opinion, if you can afford the CP622B,
right,
go for the CP622B if you like it when you hear it. If you want to save a little money, then try the CP74E, which is also very magical. Again, they remind me a lot of each other. And listen to the two and see if you think it's worth the price difference to jump up to the 622. Either way, listen to their entire line. I haven't heard their entire lineup, just these 2 models.
Right.
But given how great their flagships are, I'm wondering how, what kind of value you're going to get from the less expensive models too.
Yep.
So at CanJam Shanghai, Camper is definitely a priority stop, I think, for me, so I can hear all the rest of the line.
Now, both of those Camper in-ears come with cables from Elatech.
I should have mentioned that.
We should have.
Yeah.
But, for example, the CP622B comes with Elatech's Socrates cable. And, of course, cables are what Elatech is best known for. But they also have a wonderful line of accessories. So here at HIFI, you and I are both into leather.
Yeah.
And I think you could say we're kind of aficionados in that space. We have, DAP cases, backpacks, wallets, watch bands, boots, everything in leather. And Elatech makes some fantastic leather accessories.
They do.
They're almost always limited. So, for example, this is the companion case Cavalry.
Yes.
And it is a wonderful looking kudu leather. Oh, I love the finish on this.
So kudu is an African antelope.
Yes.
I actually have several pairs of boots made of kudu leather. I love kudu leather.
Yes. It's a wonderful piece of leather to choose for this because it shows wear very well. And it's also very reliable. It's very durable, very stable. You pop your favorite headphones or accessories into this, and unfortunately, they can't buy it.
Yeah, unfortunately, these are sold out.
Yeah.
Now, the only reason we're showing them to you is because whenever Elatech has a limited edition case or accessory, if you like it, just order it. Otherwise, they sell out very quickly.
Immediately, because they have some larger cases, the Luxe cases. You and I both love different finishes on these. Like that moss to me is wonderful. I
know.
love the look.
And I like the tan one, but we missed those.
We did.
Yeah.
So if you can check out their accessories, definitely check out the companion cases
Yeah.
if they have any there to look at.
Any of their accessories.
Any. But one accessory you will be likely to buy are the Baroque ear tips. Now, we use the Baroque ear tips here. We have them currently on the Singolo.
That's one of the IEMs I use it with.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the Singolo, I think I mentioned in the Singolo segment that the Baroque ear tips immediately made it fit better on my ears because they can have fit issues.
Yeah. Now, these tips are in high demand. So every time you go to a CanJam and we know that they're there, they sell out.
They sell out quickly.
Usually on the first day.
Yes.
If there's any left by Sunday, they're gone fast.
Yes.
So definitely go to Elitech's exhibit early if you're looking to get some ear tips, because the Baroque ear tips, they're must editions.
Yeah,
They
try
really are.
try the Baroque ear tips, not just for the sound, right? So see how they sound with your in-ears, but also with in-ears, again, that you've had fit issues with. So if you had any in-ears that you wish you could improve the fit of, try the Baroque. They're so supple.
Yeah.
And they're so soft that, for me, they've solved the fit issues with several different IEMs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So definitely stop by Elitech's exhibit. Check out their full line of cables, but also those accessories.
Now, Elitech has been showing off a prototype for an upcoming IEM codenamed the Romeo at CanJams this year. It was shown recently at CanJam Singapore, and you'll be able to experience it for yourself at CanJam Shanghai. Now, the details for this prototype have been kept under strict lock and key, so I have no idea what's inside. But I do know that the Romeo shown at CanJam Singapore was an updated version of the Romeo showed at CanJam New York back in March. Since I couldn't make it to Singapore myself this past April, CanJam Shanghai will be my first opportunity to hear what's changed, so I'm looking forward to trying the updated Romeo at Elitech's CanJam Shanghai exhibit.
At CanJam Singapore, the IceLab Prismatica and Prismatica Gold limited edition IEMs were quite popular.
That does not surprise me at all.
Not surprising at all. They're both excellent IEMs. But I was under the impression that maybe there were major differences between the two, and we only had the Prismatica Gold edition here.
Right, briefly.
Which we don't have anymore.
Right.
Now, they're all sold out. They only made and sold 18 of them. So I loved the Prismatica Gold, and it was sad that they sold out, and we didn't end up picking one up. But there's been some confusion on the forums, including with me, about what the differences are between the Prismatica and Prismatica Gold are. Because I was worried that if we missed the gold, that maybe we missed the magic.
Right.
Actually, I think people can feel comfortable picking up the Prismatica, which is not a limited edition. So here are the differences. And the similarities. Both Prismaticas share the same driver configuration of 5 BAs, 5 balanced armatures, and that's 1 Knowles subwoofer, 2 Sonyan composite UHF drivers, 2 full-range monomer drivers. And both use audiophile-grade components like Alma capacitors from Japan and Dale resistors from the U.S. Now, I don't remember what the cable was, the main
was
cable.
gold, so...
Yeah, so I don't know the differences between the cables, but in terms of the internal cabling, there were some differences there. The original Prismatica, the one I'm holding, uses OCC copper as internal wire. The Prismatica Gold used gold-plated silver internal wire, so it was an upgraded cable internally as well. All right, other than that, those are the differences. If you really like the Prismatica Gold, like I did, you can feel good knowing that you can still get much of that magic in the Prismatica. They are, for the most part, quite similar, nearly identical in terms of the major components. And I've heard both now, but we don't have the gold here anymore.
Right.
And I am so happy that we do have this here.
This actually has one advantage to me over the gold, and it might be a silly thing.
What's that?
The cable has on the split and on the device termination.
Oh, here?
It spins,
Yeah.
but it's so buttery smooth. The machining on that is almost flawless.
Yeah, so these spin.
But it's so nicely done.
It's almost like a fidget toy.
Yeah.
But it feels nice.
It feels wonderful.
Yeah. So I love spinning those.
Yeah. I adore that, and I don't believe the gold had that.
Yeah, I don't remember anymore.
Yeah.
But I play with it on these.
Yeah.
So, again, the gold was fantastic. But so is the Prismatica. It's mostly the same.
Yeah.
So if you love the sound of the gold, you're going to love the sound of the Prismatica. And, sound signature-wise, I would call it kind of a rich neutral. And it does just about everything right. It images beautifully. It's very detailed. And IceLab, for me, was kind of new for IEMs for me.
Yeah.
Going into CanJam Singapore.
I think we'd heard one way back.
Way back.
Yeah.
But this is the first time, with Singapore and New York that we heard kind of their latest models.
Exactly.
So anyway, at CanJam Shanghai, definitely go to IceLab's exhibit. Again, if you missed the Prismatica Gold, you should feel fine listen to the normal Prismatica. It's also, I think, quite a bit less expensive than the
It is.
Prismatica Gold was. So check it out at Ice Lab's exhibit.
Now we're holding here 2 cables from Vortex Cables, and that's a brand that I really first heard of for CanJam Singapore. They sent us the Lavinia.
That's their
and
flagship, I think.
I believe that's their flagship. It's a 20.4 gauge cable with 4-in pure silver, gold-plated OCC copper, gold-plated 4-in silver, and palladium-plated 4-in silver inside. So there's a lot going on inside of this. It has silver-plated 5-in OFC shielding, and Vortex Cables has said it's independently insulated outer skin and twisted positive and negative poles to cancel out the effects of voltage changes. So, like I said, they sent this to us for CanJam Singapore, and it was the first time I listened to it. I gotta say, the finish, it's a very nice braid on the outside.
It is.
I love the color choice. Orange and purple, 2 of my favorite colors.
And for a flagship cable, using those components like 4N pure silver,
Yeah,
it's actually reasonably priced.
it is, and it's machined very nicely. I love the splitter on this.
Yeah.
So the one we have here is terminated in 2-pin, so there's a lot of options we could pair it with. And they also sent a new, I think it's a new cable.
I think this is a newer model. For
This
sure.
is the Eddy Squared. Now, I'll be honest, I knew nothing about this when it arrived. I thought, oh, fun surprise in the mail.
Right.
I love when that happens. So the Eddy Squared is a collaboration between Vortex and Eddy's Hi-Fi Audio World, which people may recognize as a renowned reviewer in Asia. And it's a 21-gauge high-purity OCC copper cable with silver-plated 5-in LFC OFC copper shielding. It uses Vortex's golden ratio strands with shielded twisted pair, and it even has Eddy's logo on the splitter. If you look on one side, you got Vortex. On the other side, you got Eddy's logo.
Oh, it does.
It's kind of cool. I like
Yeah.
that. And it comes with standard Connex Basic. I should mention this also has Connex Basic on it as well. And that's terminated in 4.4 millimeter. So that one won't break the bank based off the pricing that I found from Google Translated websites. So
Right.
I haven't seen any prices here in the West, but from what I'm seeing in China, that's very reasonable.
Yeah, it's lower in price than the flagship Lavinia.
It is, yeah. So definitely stop by Vortex Cables exhibit, try out both of these, pair it with your favorite IEMs, and just see which one tickles your fancy. Okay, that was so much gear to get through, but it was still just a sampling of all the gear you'll be able to hear at CanJam Shanghai this year, happening June 8th and 9th at the Shanghai Marriott Marquis City Center. We'd like to once again thank our CanJam sponsors, Max Digital and Campfire Audio, because we could not do the show without them. So, because we couldn't cover all of the gear that's going to be at CanJam Shanghai, scrolling on your screen now is a list of all the exhibitors and brands at CanJam Shanghai this year. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow to catch up on all of our current videos, and we'll see you in Shanghai and on the forums at headfi.org.